Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are live. We are also on time. We are here today, Thursday, May 14th. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We are green in the pre-markets, as we have been for a while. One stock in particular is taking up a lot of attention because we just had a summit between the United States and China. And, well, Nvidia got a deal, which is kind of what I think people expected. Maybe Tesla gets a deal as well. And Nvidia right there is at 230 in the pre-market. All-time highs as the market is now much more excited for this China trip. I mean, if this trip goes even better than so far what has already happened at the trip, which in this case is essentially giving Nvidia the right to be able to sell into multiple different Chinese companies and getting rid of the export controls, at least for the H200s, not for the Blackwells yet, then I don't know. I think the market's going to be a little bit more excited for the broader chip sector and where this is going from here. This is the headline right here from Reuters. The U.S. cleared about 10 Chinese firms, including Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, JD, to buy Nvidia H200 chips, with Lenovo and Foxconn approved as distributors. No deliveries have been happened yet, as Beijing scrutiny is keeping some of the deals stalled. So Beijing has not officially approved Nvidia to be able to sell. Again, they do enjoy the domestic manufacturing and production of their chips. But the U.S. has said, okay, we are allowing you to sell. And if Beijing allows it as well, then boom, you might have some more excitement when it comes to these Nvidia chips. So that's the big headline of the day. We'll talk about a lot of other things that are going on, but that is kind of, I think, framing the day and why we've seen so much excitement and momentum so far early on in the pre-market. Nvidia did hit 232 at one point. S&P 500 right there, 744.77. I mean, it's quite incredible seeing continued all-time highs pretty much every day at this point. And even when we open red in the pre-market, those red days get easily destroyed with the momentum that we're seeing across the broad market. 744 at 74. We closed at an all-time high at 742. The bulls are in control. The bulls are in control. You're starting to see a little bit more participation across the entire market. It's not just some of the semis. It is still a majority of the semis, but as some of the other names start putting in a little bit of more work, you're seeing some of that breadth expand. Now, there's a lot of work to be put in for this to be a wide-ranging bull market, not just semis, but a name like a Rock Lab over the past couple of days, right, has participated 123.19 in the pre-market. Rock Lab hit 127 yesterday in the trading hours after you had a bunch of other space names like Lunar. I didn't even notice Lunar was at 17 in February. This thing's at 35.68, 33 in the pre-market, down about 5%, but they had a massive earnings. And a name like Lunar, Planet Labs, all of these names. Google hit above 400. Apple hit above 300. I mean, you're seeing a lot of these names hit new all-time highs. These are the largest components of the S&P. Meta and Microsoft not really participating yet, but they were a little bit green yesterday. And I think that's what's helping lead the S&P to get to these all-time highs. All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. How will the news affect AMD? Well, to be honest, I think it's pretty bullish AMD. AMD is down pre-market, which I think the street is interpreting, okay, AMD doesn't have approval, Nvidia does. But if Nvidia has approval, I imagine AMD will eventually get approval. So maybe that's the reason it's getting hit a little in the pre-market. We'll see what happens in the market open, but I can't imagine how that's bearish, because if Nvidia can sell the H200, AMD should be able to sell the MI350 eventually. And so that should be relatively bullish long-term. Lady D, what's up? Good morning. Evan, stock market news. How you doing? Jumpman Collector, thanks for being here. Tess, what's up? Kareem, Eva, we'll talk about Poet. They got a deal this morning, and that deal is leading their stock to go higher. So we'll talk about that. Ondas also had earnings as well. We will discuss that. 14% move. So streets liking some of the numbers we got from Ondas. Kyle, what's up? K11, what's up? Why the Qualcomm sell-off? I don't even know there was a Qualcomm sell-off. Is there a sell-off? That's down 3%. Until Qualcomm loses 200, I feel like it's just trading within a range, which is not that crazy. But we will take a look at that. Uzi, what's up? Clazy, Kevin, Purdy Investor, what's up, what's up, what's up? Erwin, good morning. Cindy, good morning to you. Thank you all for being here. Blake, Vi says, Amit is so late, he thinks being late is being on time. 1 minute late is not that bad, you know, given it's 3 or 4 minutes every other day. Maddie, Legacy, Blake, good morning. Chris, Diego, Mosh, Jogger, Covert. All right. let's get into it. Let's see what we got going on. Michelle, Chels, thank you all for being here. Cerebras is going live today as well. That's going to be around 1 p.m. We'll talk about Cerebras. Jose will be on the show at 10:30, and he knows a lot more about Cerebras than I do, so we'll get his thoughts on kind of what this IPO looks like and why it should be something on people's radar. Based on the projections that I've seen for Cerebras, it's going to be trading at 100 times sales, and there is a real shot this thing goes to $250, $300 because 87% of the float is locked up. So there's not going to be that many shares for people to fight over. And if there's a lot more demand than there are shares, then obviously the share price goes up. So that will be a very interesting IPO. I'm going to see if I can get some shares. If I can't, then it is what it is. It's going to be one of those things where you really have to chase it. I don't know how many people are going to hold it paying these expensive levels. It kind of reminds me of Figma. Now it's a different stock than Figma, but Figma, everyone chased it to the point where it went from 30 to 150 in a day. And then the last 8 months have been horrible for Figma as it, kept coming down because that valuation wasn't sustainable. In this market, for a semiconductor name, the valuation probably is a bit more sustainable, but how crazy does the valuation get? We will find out today when they end up going public. All right, so let's start off with this China news because this is the most important thing that happened throughout the day. And I fell asleep last night, so I didn't see too much of the introduction between Trump and Xi, but they did have an introduction. Xi met him at the landing for Air Force One, and then they had a conversation. So here's a couple of the clips of what she said, and then we will keep going from there.
President Xi, I want to thank you very much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before. And I think I was particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful. The military is obvious. It couldn't be better, but those children were amazing, and they represent so much. And I know they represent so much to you. You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president has had. And it's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you, and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked it out very quickly. And we're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth. And I just want to say, on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them. We asked the top 30 in the world. Every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business. And it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I really look very much forward to our discussion. It's a big discussion. There are those that say this is maybe the biggest summit ever. They can never remember anything like it. I can say in the United States, people aren't talking about anything else. But it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Look, at the end of the day, we want the relationship with China and the U.S. to be in a good standing for obvious reasons. So these are the world's biggest two superpowers. So it's important that they have a good relationship and they're able to work together. One of the interesting things that Trump said was the most important business leaders in the world are with me. And this was one of those business leaders. You got Mr. Elon being Elon right there with Timmy Apple, enjoying his time in China. So you got Elon and Apple there. And then you also had Elon really being Elon here as Elon was capturing the moment on his phone. He's been to China many times. He's acting like a tourist here, but it's pretty cute, to be honest. So there you go. That's Elon and the other big business leaders that are there. So the question is, will we get any big business deals? And That is what Besant was talking about earlier today.
Again, Joe, I'm not sure where this $1 trillion investment number has come from. It's somehow gotten out into the ether. And the purpose of this board of investment is to decide upfront what are the non-strategic, non-sensitive areas where it would be possible for the Chinese to invest. I chair something called CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. And what we want to do is make sure that these investments don't get referred to CFIUS. So this would pre-game those investments just to make sure that they're not of a strategic or sensitive area. But look, there are plenty of things that the Chinese could invest in the U.S., and we're trying to push the same thing in the U.S. President Trump today told Xi Jinping that he wants to open up China, and China should open up. China's domestic economy has been weak. The Chinese consumer needs to get a larger share of wages, or labor needs to get a larger share of the GDP. It all tends to go back into manufacturing now, and China really needs to create a bigger consumer economy, and President Trump and the entire administration have been pushing them to do that.
So there's a report from Reuters that just came out that the U.S. has cleared around 10 Chinese firms to buy Nvidia's second most powerful AI chip, the H200. No deliveries have been made so far, but this is obviously something that CEO Jensen Huang probably would like to see happen as far as a breakthrough. Can you confirm that's true, and which companies would be allowed, approved, which Chinese firms to buy those chips?
Yeah, Joe, this is news to me. I know there's been a lot of back and forth on the H200s, and we'll have to see on that. That's a Commerce Department function.
Okay.
So overall, you're seeing the administration have a relatively bullish stance with this meeting in China. I mean, we'll see if the Nvidia deal actually becomes finalized. Obviously, the market is interpreting it as real, which is why stock is hitting 230 in the pre-market. Tesla has not announced any type of deal with China yet. Elon is there, so maybe that announcement does happen. Tesla right there, 448. They have 25% of their entire sales, I believe, happen in China. So seems like this is going to be a relatively strong summit, and hopefully we get some updates. We got a report right here that the White House says China is interested in buying more American oil, while also agreeing with the U.S. that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, the Chinese government says Trump was told that Taiwan is the most important issue on the table for the communist country, and warns the future of U.S.-China depends on how it's handled. And this is why this meeting, I think, is going to be relatively important, because I don't think China even cares about Iran or oil or the Strait of Hormuz. I think what they care about, and if you ask many people who have studied Taiwanese geopolitics, they care about reuniting with Taiwan. And I think they deeply care about how the U.S. would respond if they tried to reunite with Taiwan. And obviously the U.S. would not be happy about that. So there's a lot of different nuance in terms of what's going to happen with that conversation when the Chinese government actually decides that that would be a route they want to explore. And so I think they're going to be willing to give the United States a lot of concessions, including buying Nvidia chips, or talking to Iran and trying to get them to open up the Strait of Hormuz, given they are allies versus the United States, which is an adversary of Iran, if the U.S. can somewhat capitulate on Taiwan, which the U.S. doesn't want to do. So it's a very complicated issue. We'll see eventually how the U.S. deals with it, but hopefully any good relationships are going to be important based on the summit, which is what we have going on over the next coming days. TSM right there, 403 in the pre-market. That's up 1.05% as that also goes green. Ondas, so let's get some earnings, which is what we've got right here. That's up 13%. It was up 14%. Looks like they crushed, even with more of the dilution. So Ondas reported Q1 results of $50 million in revenue, raised their revenue target to $390 million, and expanded pro forma backlog to $457 million. The company said this quarter reflected accelerating demand across counter, UAS, ISR, and autonomous systems markets, while advancing Ondas's global operating platform and AI-enabled multi-domain ISR strategy. Look, the drone stocks haven't been in favor, Kratos, Ondas, etc., even though there is a war going on. All the liquidity, once again, has been going to the semis, but nonetheless, it was a good quarter. So if you're a long Ondas shareholder from below 8, below 9, you have nothing to be upset about. If you got stuck in it from 12 to 15, obviously it's a bit annoying that the stock is down at these levels, even with their execution, but they also have been diluting. So it's one of those things where either it's an opportunity cost or you hold long and strong. And that's kind of the story for a lot of these different stocks that are out there. Cisco has been an opportunity cost for 26 years, and now it's not. 15% up in the pre-market. Why is Cisco up? It's kind of crazy, right? Cisco, Nokia, all these stocks from the 2000s that are starting to, come back. Intel, they laid off 4,000 people, or they're going to lay off 4,000 people. Intel actually down in the pre-market, down about 4%. And they increased their sales orders from 5 billion to 9 billion. So that, and particularly hyperscale purchase orders. So they beat on revenue, they beat on EBITDA, they beat on the guidance, but they also increased the orders that they're getting in from 5 billion to 9 billion. And that right there told the street, okay, the networking component, your Aristas, your Ciscos of the world, Nvidia also does networking with NVLink. That is something that we should be more exciting about. Now, Arista had a pretty good run going into the earnings. Their earnings weren't amazing, which is why that stock took a dip. It's been trying to recover. Cisco just had a really freaking good earnings, and it has not run as much as ANET did. So as a result, that's getting a lot more green, and you're seeing some momentum there. 117.30. Once again, it is one of those markets where you can own a Shopify and they can crush by 40% and beat all expectations, have the highest GMV in history, and the stock goes down literally 35% from the highs, 130 down to 95. And a company like Cisco, which, look, the earnings were good. The backlog order was really good in terms of their increase on that, but it's not like they're beating by 30, 40%. They're not growing by 30, 40%, but they're in the right theme when it comes to data center buildouts. And if Nvidia is going to be selling a lot more chips to China, you're going to need a lot more data centers, a lot more networking. That's where the street's perception of Cisco is going to be a lot more important. And that's why you're getting a bid. Poet, so this was a stock where you either had to be bearish on the CFO and the scandal that happened with him in terms of leaking some of these confidential orders, which is when the stock fell 60% in a day, or you had to look past that and be bullish on the overall photonics play that they're going for and assume that something good would happen. They got an order today for $50 million, and that order specifically is an order around their photonics product with the potential for that to be a $500 million over the coming years. The partner is with Lumels for AI optics, 50 million initial order for optical engines. The partnership could scale to 500 million over 5 years. Only photonic stock that has not moved all year. Pretty much all of them have moved. In fact, this is the one that fell 50% in a day. You kind of have to look past that if you were bullish on this. And it's hard for a lot of people to look past that because obviously when management messes up, it's really hard for people to trust the company. But if you were able to look past that and you get a deal, once again, we are in this market where the trend is up on anything that is a supply chain bottleneck for AI optics is becoming the biggest outside of memory supply chain bottleneck. I was actually talking with someone last night who went to GTC back in 2024. And he was, or it was maybe 2025. I only went to GCC this year, so I didn't go in 2025. And he was speaking to one of the executives that worked at Lumentum, LITE, which is, them and Coherent, one of the biggest optics plays that Nvidia invested in. And he has a lot of Nvidia, but he said he never invested in Lumentum because he just didn't really look into it. But the lady that he talked to, some executive at GTC, said she's really excited for Nvidia's future with Lumentum because she was trying to explain how important optics are going to be when it comes to connecting GPUs to talk to each other and why copper was not going to be able to be the best substance to make this happen. And he ignored it. And that's when I think the stock was trading at like $10. Now it's at 1,000. So it's one of those things where these thematics have become so relevant and so important. And the market has obviously rewarded those thematics in a pretty meaningful way. Klarna, they had earnings today. Are we up? We are up 16%. Now, Klarna is down from $45 at the IPO. So obviously this one kind of had nowhere to go but up if they delivered, I would imagine. Klarna, EPS and revenue, let's see. I don't have the exact numbers yet. 13 to 16. Here you go. Revenue, 1 billion. That's up 44% year over year. EPS was, they lost a cent. The street thought they would lose 20 cents. So it's a beat on revenue, beat on EPS. GMV is up 33% year over year. Transaction margin, 389 million. Adjusted operating profit, 68 million versus 3 million. In Q1, we executed well across all businesses, driving every line of our P&L and compounding growth across our global network. Growing network, same three products, deeper customer engagement. Kind of makes sense. Klarna's doing well. I mean, buy now, pay later is like a big thing, especially in an economy where people really are struggling when it comes to credit. And again, the trick about Klarna that people don't understand is that it's not consumers that pay the interest on buying now and paying later. It's the merchants that pay Klarna the ability for Klarna's distribution to offer buy now, pay later to the merchants' products. And so realistically, the merchants are paying most of the gap in between, whereas consumers can get away with paying very little interest, if not any interest. But still, if consumers don't pay back the part of the pay later part, that's where Klarna has to show delinquencies at scale. But this stock, 16.4%, that is green on the days. Take-Two making a move. Take-Two is also up 5%. We got a lot of things before GTA 6. I feel like we will continue to have a lot of things before GTA 6, but that stock is green. The Clarity Act will get voted on today. So very, very important for Bitcoin and crypto. Here's what Brian Armstrong had to say today about the Clarity Act.
Yeah, well, I go around and I speak with lots of different bank CEOs, and many of them are just leaning into this as an opportunity to grow their business. They're integrating stablecoins as fast as they can. They understand that their clients want access to crypto assets, and all these funds are now being tokenized, and it's just going to make everything more efficient in the financial system. So I truly believe that this is an opportunity for American companies, including the banks. We're very invested in their success. They're invested in our success, by the way. They've been working with us as partners in many different ways for the last 14 years. And so we're at a place now where all American companies can finally start to build this industry. My hope is that with this legislation getting through, we're all going to be able to work together a little bit more collaboratively. Yeah, well, I go around and I speak with.
Hopefully the voting goes well, because if it does, I would imagine Bitcoin would have some reaction. Maybe it doesn't have any meaningful reaction, but if it does, that would be nice. Another person who likes crypto that's also going to be in a position of power after the Clarity Act hopefully gets passed is Kevin Warsh, who got approved by the Senate. He got approved by the thinnest margin in history to be the federal chair reserve, but he did get approved. And starting next month, he will deliver his first Fed chair meeting. And this is the guy that we have to care about for basically the next 6 years. Every single syllable that he utters will matter. He likes crypto. He loves AI, but he does not like lowering rates for the hell of lowering rates. And he absolutely does not like quantitative easing. So there's a lot of nuance to Kevin Warsh, but he will now be on the agenda and we will have to listen to everything he says. Intel will be making Mac Neo chips with their Apple collaboration, and they collaborated with Google. We talked about that yesterday. So Intel is now going to be making the chips in the Google books. That was announced. I think it was announced on Monday. They have SpaceX, Apple, Google, and then Nvidia and the US government all working with them. So now, granted, the stock has obviously had a massive run. It's kind of been stuck around this 115 to 125 range, 114 right here in the pre-market. We'll see if it can break out. It did touch 135 at one point a couple days ago. So this one's taking a little bit more of a breather, but it's obviously made massive, massive moves. I don't know why it's necessarily down pre-market. I don't see a headline for it. It could just be selling off. Where is Micron pre-market? We are 791. So this has been oscillating between, call it 750 and 820 over the past couple of days. Sanjay Malhotra, the CEO of Micron, is also in China with Trump. So we're going to see if this one can get a breakout above 818. And, got a lot of people saying it breaks out above 825. It's headed straight to 900. Question is going to be, will the streets get excited to give it that? What do you think about Cerebras? So Jose will be on in about an hour. We'll talk to him about Cerebras. Again, I don't know where this is going to land when it goes public. It'll happen around 1 p.m. From everything I've read, they're pricing the IPO at $185 a share. Realistically, given 87% of the float is locked up, it's more likely going to be closer to 200 than if not 250. And then if we get a bit euphoric, this thing's probably going up to 300 if you have that many people chasing it, which is not that crazy because when you look at the last couple of euphoric IPOs like Figma, that's what happened. Again, 93% of the cap table is locked, so the real tradable float is 7 million shares, and there's a short interest theoretically of 11 million shares. So, the question is just going to be how much the market interprets it, and we're going to see what ends up happening. I tried to get into Cerebras 4 years ago. Well, there was a report that ARM tried to buy some shares of Cerebras, and the market said no, they can't. So, you've had a lot of bidders trying to, or Cerebras, I should say, said no, you're not allowed to buy it. And as a result, I think they're going to be doing what ironically SoftBank did with ARM, which is ARM is still 90% of ARM's float is still not tradable. SoftBank owns it. SoftBank has always wanted ARM to become their Nvidia because they sold Nvidia, in 2019. And so Masa-san has always wanted to have ARM become that next big thing, but squeezing the float is probably one of the best ways to do it if, you can't produce massive growth. Isn't it 284? No, I'm seeing 185 as the listing price. That's the official listing price that Cerebras put out yesterday because they were required to put out. It's 165 to 185 is the actual price. Where it opens up is, going to be open to how the market interprets it. But right now, I think it's at 185. Palantir pre-markets. This is basically flat 130. Again, software has just not been catching the bid. IGV basically flat pre-market. App 11. I don't know why this thing fell 7% yesterday, but it fell 7.5%. It's up a little bit in the pre-market. Reddit also has been getting wrecked. Fell to 148. It's at 154 now, so you're getting a little bit of momentum to the upside. But obviously, software once again just not in the right thematic, and I don't know when it's going to be, but the market is at this moment not really giving it that much love. Nebius, right, they're still holding 200. Second day of this holding 200, 209.07. Will you cover AMAT? Yes, after the bell, we'll have applied materials, and we will take a look at what earnings that one puts up. Okay, couple other major headlines before we get into the market open that are important. First of all, initial jobless claims 211,000 versus 205,000 expected. So we're seeing all these headlines around layoffs. Meta, Cisco, Amazon, a lot of these companies have officially decided that they, I think, are going to trade labor for compute, which maybe is not the craziest thing to do. Initial jobless claims right there, 211,000 versus 205, still not recessionary. So for all the bears saying things are bad underneath the surface, it's like, yeah, things are not the best underneath the surface, especially around oil and inflation, which, PPI was bad yesterday. The market does not care. I think the market is thinking oil is transitory. I think that's what's happening right now. Because at this point, if we can ignore 6% PPI and basically 4% CPI, then the market is obviously saying oil right there still above 100. That we think the war will end. We think oil will come down. And if the majority of the increase for CPI and PPI is oil, well, it's transitory or transient, however you want to frame it, and inflation will eventually come down. And I don't think the market's that crazy to be making that assumption because it's not like there's something fundamentally structural underneath the surface like we had in 2022 where we, printed $10 trillion in 10 months. Like that was like, okay, you're going to get some inflation. This is something where it's bad. Oil is definitely bad above 100, but if it starts to come down, which it's not that crazy to imagine it does come down if the war really does come to an end, if we get a serious peace deal, then the market is looking past that. Also, I think what's happening in the broader stock market, which is exactly what happened in 2021, and eventually this thing ends up not going the best, but in the meantime, it's okay, which is people are buying stocks as a hedge against inflation. In 2021, when people realized inflation was running rampant, what did they do? They started buying tech because tech is what can outgrow inflation. And the earnings numbers have been absolutely fantastic as the 10-year still basically at 4.5%. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, would you sell stocks because you're afraid of rate hikes, which would hurt high beta growth and therefore you want to get out of the market? Maybe. But would you buy stocks that are putting up good earnings and ignoring all the macro data because they can outpace the rate of inflation? Yeah, that's another kind of easy way to frame where your capital should be going, especially if these companies are, putting up sustainable earnings growth at scale. Yeah, there is no alternative, right? And the reason, that money's not going into real estate is because the housing market has been cooked and mortgage rates continue to be as high, the highest they've been in 5 years. Crypto has been basically dead, and this thing needs to, get revised for the market to be more excited about that. So the only place you have left really is equities. I mean, maybe gold, but that has been also dead for the past couple months. Silver down 2%. Silver's been okay, but it, had a blow off top back in January. And so where do you put your money? You put your money into Nvidia, right? You put your money into Micron. You put your money into stuff that you think is literally going to grow. And it's obvious how the growth is happening. And I think that's also why we're seeing the type of bid that we're seeing in the stock market right now. Which is kind of exciting because that means for all of us that are long equities, like we get to sit back and let people that are trying to hedge against inflation just chase what's happening. But, it also could have some unintended consequences in the future. But as of now, the earnings growth is what the market cares about. Tesla right there, 447.8 in the pre-market. as that also goes green. By the way, Bloomberg reported that business schools are in panic mode. MBA programs are now offering up to 50% off as applications are collapsing. Students are walking away from expensive degrees amid AI fears, a weak job market, massive student debt, and falling ROI. So you've got Bloomberg with a report that MBA programs. Put in the chat if you have an MBA. I'm curious here who has an MBA. I almost got one at Rutgers. It was a 5-year program instead of a 4-year program. And then I chose not to. But, you know, those MBAs are just becoming a little less in desire simply because of the fact that it costs a lot of money. And people don't really know if there's going to be a job waiting for them on the other side. Cisco CEO, he's live. Let's see what he had to say about their blowout quarter last night.
And you don't have silicon, you're just not going to play there. And so having that silicon is a key to us operating at place. But we also, the enterprise was on, I mean, enterprise, public sector, everything was hot this quarter.
Before I give it over to Carl, multiple hyperscalers, 5, 2 for optics, the Acacia. Oh my God, did that pay off? So you made a series of acquisitions. I wrote, Chuck made these acquisitions, fantastic.
Yeah, the Acacia one was interesting because I remember at the time China approval lapsed and we had to renegotiate the deal, but we stuck with it and got it done. And it turned out to be just another incredible idea by our team. I'd like to take credit for it, but we have great people who had the idea.
Hold on, when things weren't good, you took credit for that. I'm going to give you, I'm giving you an A+ on it now.
Well, so you get these this Acacia optics for a lot of scale across, which is data center connectivity, and as these data centers expand, and we did have 5 new design wins in the hyperscalers this quarter. We talked about 2 were in the optics space, and then
that's it. That's a story. If you are winning deals with the hyperscalers, the companies that are going to collectively spend, I think $700 billion this year, $1 trillion next year, that's all the street cares about. You could be growing as much as you want with amazing gross margins. If you are not getting some type of partnership or deal with those hyperscalers that is influential to this industrial revolution and build out of data centers, your stock's just not getting a bid. And Cisco said they got 2 of those deals, which is why they're up 16%.
3 were in the system space, and 2 of the 3 in the system space were the routing layer on top of these data center interconnects. So, and then we have another one that we learned about in the last week or 2. So, we got a lot of momentum right now with the team. We still have to execute. If we miss execute in silicon, then it's a problem. So the team still have to execute.
But you have your hyperscaler target has been met with the full quarter left to go. Yes.
Yes.
That's what the $5 billion.
We said $5 billion at the beginning of our fiscal year. We got to $5.3 billion after 3 quarters, and we said that we're raising our annual estimate to $9 billion, which implies $3.7 billion in the quarter we're in right now. Yeah.
People have been looking.
That's it. Increase the guide, get some hyperscaler deals, and boom, your stock goes up. At the same time that Cisco is crushing it, the United States Treasury has sold 30-year bonds above 5% for the first time since the run-up to the global financial crisis. The last time we did this was in 2007, where we sold 30-year bonds above 5%. Obviously, this is not encouraging to see. Having said that, it feels like every day I have a headline like that and the market ignores it. And maybe the market's ignoring it for now, but part of the reason the market's ignoring it is because of what Cisco said. They're getting these deals. They're implementing different levels of infrastructure. The data center revenue growth is so expansive that if you're a company that's playing a part in that data center construction, you catch a bid. And the market kind of ignores. I mean, it's pretty incredible, the market ignoring the credit markets, because in April of 2025, the market did not ignore the credit markets. And when I mean the market, I mean the credit markets obviously are acting the same as they did in April of 2025, given where the 10-year and 30-year yields are. But the stock market collapsed in April of 2025 while the bond market was screaming. It was less about tariffs. It was more about the fact that the credit markets were saying this is unsustainable. Now you have the opposite. The stock market's going up every other day and the credit markets are screaming. But I think Trump and the administration have a lot of flexibility to not really react because, obviously the stock market affects everybody, whereas the credit markets do affect everybody, but it's, I guess, less of an impact on your 401k if the stock market keeps going up. And as a result, you have a little bit more leeway to not really make that big of a difference or a change in fiscal policy. And so we're going to see what happens with the Warsh nomination. We're going to see, Tom Lee's thesis on if the market tests the Fed. We're going to see what happens in a midterm year. The next couple of months tend to be bad. But as of now, every headline you see that feels like this is an issue, doesn't end up becoming an issue, which means if you own equities, you kind of sit back and see how this ends up playing out. We got a clip from Jensen, who just got interviewed in China. Here's what he had to say.
Of course, and to come support President in one of the most important summits in human history. And the two presidents, President Xi and President Trump, have such a wonderful relationship. This is an incredible opportunity for us to rely on the relationships to build a much better partnership.
Did you get any specific customers for your chips for the H200?
We didn't really talk about. I'm here to support the president and to represent the United States.
What do you think of China's economic development right now?
I'm here to focus on one thing, just to represent the United States and supporting the president. Today's morning ceremony was very uplifting. President Xi was very inspiring, very welcoming, and President Trump was very inspiring, very welcoming as well. And so the two of them had an excellent meeting. Thank you.
Jensen knows how to handle politics and the media, not even talking about deals, not even talking about H200s, literally just talking about, being able to support the president. This is what he does. This is what Jensen does. And I'm pretty sure he knows that, part of the reason he came to China was to make sure he gets some deals, but he's not going to talk about that because, that's not what he needs to publicly discuss. Earnings will be on May 20th. So we've got earnings coming up next week. It's going to be a big day. And, Nvidia tends to fall after their earnings. This time, Nvidia is actually running up meaningfully into new all-time highs going into earnings. So we're going to see how the street ultimately reacts to it. But as of now, the market is relatively excited for not only the broader semiconductor ecosystem, but finally Nvidia that's participating in, that's at the epicenter of the semiconductor ecosystem, is catching a bid, which I think the market is a lot more excited about. Now, another sort of story right here that I think is really important that proves not only the Nvidia thesis, but the broader AI thesis. And every day you're getting new stories like this. This one went viral last night and it is absolutely crazy. This is a person who tweeted in August 2023 that they lost their Bitcoin wallet, or it was locked in their computer from 9 years ago, that had 5 Bitcoin on it. They used Claude on their computer to find out the private keys, get it decrypted, and they got access to 5 Bitcoin at $80,000. They said they tried massive passwords before. They tried hundreds and hundreds of thousands of passwords. They found this old mnemonic a few years ago that ended up being the old password before I changed it. Thought I was screwed. Last-ditch effort, dumped my whole college computer into Claude. It found an old wallet file that successfully had it decrypted, locked out 11 years because I got stoned and I changed the password. I spent $250 on each of them, and then Anthropic ended up finding it, and this ended up being the password. I'm not going to read it, but people can see it on the screen. So it's pretty incredible, dude. It's pretty freaking incredible. And you've got all these screenshots right here showing Claude deciphering those private keys. I'll link this in the chat for anyone who wants to see it. But the fact that they were able to find that stuff is pretty amazing. And then they also linked their blockchain address to verify the Bitcoin that they own. So, I mean, you're just getting massive, massive levels of excitement in regards to what Claude can do, what AI can do. And it also begs the question of how encrypted are the things that we think are encrypted. Where this will go from there. Is it too good to be true? Well, you guys can decide it for yourself. He linked all the blockchain addresses. He linked the Claude scripts to this. So, I mean, people can check it out. It went pretty viral last night, and he responded to a variety of people asking for proof for it. The point is, I think the reason part of it is believable is because Claude is becoming better and better and better and better. And, if Mythos, their new model, could find thousands of cybersecurity glitches in the highest ranking companies on the planet, which is why Basent had to actually go visit Anthropic, because he was like, okay, this is something the United States government needs to know about. I imagine Claude can do some pretty incredible things. And, we're seeing that for consumers as well. Funny to wake up to $400,000 you thought you lost. Agreed. I mean, 400 grand randomly. It's not the worst thing to wake up to. Goldman Sachs retail activity is high. 20% of total U.S. equity trading volumes are now happening today, up from 15% a decade ago. Retail margin debt across select brokers currently equates to 1.8% of customer assets, similar to the previous highs reached in 2021. So we're about 2% of those assets in margin. Retail trading is still below its peak of 2021, which is 24% before the last tech bubble. So retail is trading. It's not trading as much as it was trading going into 2021, which goes to show how crazy 2021 was with GameStop and, how massive retail mania became back then. But as I showed in that chart yesterday, in terms of the volatility of the momentum stocks, we are 5 standard deviations above where we were in 2021. So even though retail is not participating to the levels that they were back in 2021, the stock market momentum in the context of volatility versus momentum is significantly higher by 5x than 2021. And, that's why we're getting all-time highs at these broader levels. It's pretty incredible. But again, it is selective. It is not happening in every layer of this bull market. If this is true, are people's bank accounts safe? This is what I think Anthropic is seriously trying to consider. Dario is a doomer on a lot of things, but when he talks about the models being as strong as they are, I don't think people give him enough credit when he says, look, like these models can do a lot of bad things. The reason Mythos, which, we've covered it, but we haven't dug that deep into it because a lot of it's classified, but there is a reason why Anthropic has been to the White House 5 times in the past month, even after their beef with the Department of War. If Mythos actually was able to hack into it's like Google, for example, I'm just making it up, but the point is they found thousands of different security violations in a lot of other companies and some of the biggest companies in the world, which again is why the president has been briefed on this. If they were able to find out some of this stuff, I mean, it begs the question, okay, what can it do? And hacking into a bank account kind of seems like child's play for a model of that nature. Bitcoin trying to break 80,000. Now, Anthropic hopefully has more morals. OpenAI has more morals. This is something they wouldn't want to do. They probably realized it would be a net negative for humanity if they were building the model so that they could hack into bank accounts. But the point is, if the capability is there, then obviously it proves the thesis that AI is just becoming incredibly important across the entire world. Bitcoin right there, 79.8. You got the S&P hitting all-time highs at 743.74, down from 745. Figure is taking up everyone's attention. This was such a smart move by them, and they are still going. They have their robot live stream for the past 24 hours. It has done 25,000 packages. It's a very basic task. Just flip the robot to a certain side where the packaging label is on. They were supposed to run for 8 hours. Now it's at 20 hours. And this thing has gotten literally tens of millions of views. And as you can see, they named the robot Gary. This thing has been working for 20 hours. Hasn't requested a break. Hasn't had to go pee. Hasn't said, I need more benefits. I mean, this is it is becoming obvious that the robots are coming. And quite frankly, that's bullish for all the semiconductor stocks because you need a lot of semiconductor components for the chips that are needed inside the robots. But that's also going to be important for a lot of supply chains to build humanoid robotics. And I think that will plenty of opportunities for us, especially if the picks and shovels play ended up becoming the play for GPUs. I would imagine if robots scale to billions and billions of robots, there will be picks and shovels plays for humanoid robots that we will have time to do due diligence on. But Figure, Eptronic, Optimus, I mean, it looks like that could be even more exciting than the chatbot revolution that we're seeing right now, which is pretty cool. That's Gary being Gary. Exactly. That's Gary being Gary. All right, 20 seconds. Last 20 seconds of peace you have today. Because within the next 10 seconds, you know what we got to do. We got to do it every morning, rain or shine, green or red. We have to do it because it's one of the most incredible times to be an investor. Thursday, May 14th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P opens up at 744. We are green on the S&P. Red at 155.78. This was at 148 last night, so that is green. 155 on the day. IGV gets a little bit of a bid. Pounter gets a little bit of a bid. Your semis are going a little down. Poets up 25. They got a $50 million contract this morning. That's why that's green. Intel down 5. 113, Micron down 3, 781, ARM down 1.2. So we're seeing some of the semi names go down. Nvidia, are we at 229? We are at 230.70. That is a new all-time high. We hit 232 in the pre-market. I think we just hit 231 right now as well. $5.58 trillion market cap. We have officially hit 230 on Nvidia. Ondas 990, that was up 12%, now up 11.3%. You got TSM, that's up 1%. Cisco was up 16, now it's up 13. So you got some sellers definitely stepping in right at the bell. We'll see if that can recover, but that's green. SanDisk is down 5%. AppLovin goes red. On Semiconductor goes down 2. CopX goes down. This is a copper ETF or copper miner ETF. HIMS is flat. Oscar is up 24. Congrats for those that are on Oscar. Absolutely incredible. 11 to 24 basically in the past month. That's up 1.74%. That's green. SoFi, a little bit green, 1.5%. ASTS back to 76. That's green. For Solar's red. Accenture's red. Keel, Bitfarms, that is also green. That's going to be potentially the next best NeoCloud as they can continue to secure some more deals. Bloom Energy, that's down 2%. RVI is suspended as that fell, I think, from 70 to 58. That got halted. Interesting. That one got halted on the downside. Nvidia, 231. Okay, so a lot of the semi names are down, not Nvidia. And that's likely because of the China deal, theoretically, that Jensen has signed. 231.72. Let's see how far this one can go. Palantir getting a little bit of a bid. Some of the software names getting a bit of a bid. So maybe rotation, maybe 88.70 on software. That's kind of flat, but if it can flip green, you're going to see a little bit more momentum. Navitas, where is that? You're at 21. That's flat. AMD is down 1.8. All right, so we got AMD going a bit red as they were not included in this Nvidia chips deal with China. USAR had a good earnings yesterday. Rare Earths, that's down 3. Rocket Lab, that is up again at 125.25 as that is continuing heading up. It hit 127 yesterday, then fell to 123. Forget normalizing 100. Is this thing going to start normalizing the 120s, which would be absolutely substantial for Rocket Lab? Doximity, this one's down 30%. Not the best earnings yesterday, and that's why that's taken a hit. And Novix also not the best earnings. That's taken a hit by 15%. Applied Digital, that's down. Wolfspeed, that's down 3. Peng, that stock went a bit viral yesterday. That's down 5.2%. Corning at 200, down from 205. That's down 1.42%. Whereas QS QuantumScape is down 2.5%. That is red. Rubio says China trying to take Taiwan would be a mistake. Okay, he kind of said it out loud. That's always been the United States' position, but again, it seems like China cares more about that than Iran, quite frankly. So we're going to see how the market either reacts to that and also how China reacts to that. S&P 744, Nvidia, almost 232. Almost. There it is, 232. Wow. She's taken off. She is taken off. Let's see if we can hold it throughout the day. Even if we hold above 225, I'd be happy, to be honest. But 232 is what you got right there. Ondas up 12. SanDisk down 4. Nebesis, what do we got? 212. Nebi's back to 212 here. SPY, another all-time high. Pretty incredible, dude. We didn't have too much macro data today that was bad. Rocket Lab just went red. Lost 125. IGV 88.72. Again, Poet got a contract this morning. That's why that stock's making a move. So you either trust in their ability to continue landing those contracts or you didn't believe in management. But this is the nature of this market. It's very simple. You either believe in the thematic and ride the stock in the thematic or you don't. And if you don't, you don't qualify for those types of gains. And there might be good reasons to not because, you're scared of the shadiness of the company or whatever. That's what these small caps tend to be. Or you ride whatever's in the thematic. And in this case, so far in this market, riding the memory theme, riding the photonics theme, that has led many companies to do well, even if, they're not the highest quality companies that are out there. Palantir 131.74. That is all screen. Cybers is up 6%. That's correct. ALMU, which is another stock in this space, down 25. ALMU is photonics, right? Am I wrong about that? ALMU. Yes, ALMU is photonics. So ALMU, ironically, down 25. Although this was up a lot more over the coming weeks. Poet is up 40 as it crosses 20. So you're seeing a divergence between two of these different photonics plays. Here's the thing about Poet. When you saw it collapse by 50% 2 weeks ago to $7 and you didn't get excited, you can't have FOMO right now, right? Like you just can't, because when a stock falls 50% and you think there's potential and you don't buy, then obviously you don't think there's potential. You don't want to touch it. So there's no reason to have FOMO when it runs up, because if you were never going to touch it after it fell 50% in a day, which most people, didn't, then chasing it doesn't make the most sense. Microsoft right there, 403. That one continues to go red. Nokia, 1470. This one hit 1550 last night, 1470 right there. So that loses the majority of the pump that I got in the after hours, but still holding on to the pump that I got yesterday from 1380. Is Broadcom ripping? Broadcom is indeed ripping. 431. Looks like that one is tracking Nvidia, as that one's going green. Nvidia 231. Why is Intel down? I do not know. Intel, well, it's kind of recovering. 113 to 115. Even Micron, it was at 780. Micron's now at 796, dude. These dips are like 50 seconds before they get bought up at this point. And that's been a theme for the past 2 weeks now. Until we get some data that suggests otherwise, that these dips aren't going to get bought up. These dips are, even AMD, 437 to 440. It's $5 away from flipping green. Like, within the first 10 minutes of the day, the market's ready to buy up the dip on the semiconductor names. And then the software and fintech names start falling down because the money goes back to the semis. SoFi, slightly red from its high, 1535, but still up a little bit on the day. Nebi is continuing to move. That one's going up, 214, 217, I think is their all-time high that they hit yesterday. And we're going to see if that continues to go up. Cantor Fitzgerald raises their Nvidia price target to 350. Analysts sees institutional ownership and sustained momentum driving further upside. Redwire also up 10%. There you go. That one continuing to make a move. It's the semis, folks. It's this market is for the semis. Owning a name that's not in the semis, I just think, we've talked about this over and over and over again. By the way, why is RVI down 30%? See, this is, remember the feeling people had when Poet was down 50%? And you were like, man, I'm not touching that shit. And now it's up 40% back to $20 and you feel FOMO. RVI right here. How many people were like, man, I wish I got into RVI as it was hitting $75 yesterday? Well, it's down 30%. This is your opportunity. But the fact that you don't know why it's down 30%, because we don't know why the hell it was up 50% over the past week, is why it's tough to stomach this. Like, do you want to stomach that type of volatility? It's easy to say in hindsight that, oh, I was never going to buy that, or, oh, I should have bought that. Here it is. This is the opportunity, down 30%. Who's going to buy? But I have no idea why it's down 30%. The only holding that could have that type of volatility inside of their portfolio is OpenAI. So did OpenAI become 30% less valuable today? That it's affecting RVI? And did it become 50% more valuable over the past couple of weeks for RVI to literally triple? Like, I don't think Databricks or Stripe or any of the other stuff they have in there really became that exciting. It literally had to be OpenAI. So some of this stuff, if you can't stomach the volatility, you just can't stomach the volatility. But what I was saying is, if you own a name that, once again, is not in the right thematic, it's just not going to move right now. It's just that simple. It's not going to move. And so the inevitable question is, okay, do I buy? Do I buy these names? And do I be greedy when everyone is fearful and I buy ServiceNow when everyone hates it? Maybe. Or do I take my net new capital, even if I don't want to sell my losers right now, and I put it into stuff that's working? And I think there's no right or wrong answer, but nonetheless, if you buy the stuff that's not working, hoping that in a year it starts working, then you're telling yourself, okay, I need to give myself some time for this to work. Because right now, this is not actually making a difference. Celsius actually up 4%. This one getting a little bit more love after falling 10% over the past couple of days. You have Nebius. Are we breaking 217? Yep. Trying to break 217.20 right here. Yeah, it's just an opportunity cost. It's just an opportunity cost. RVI is trading crazy over MNAV. I think it made sense to buy it under MNAV. There was a period, but not here. But the question is, why did it trade above MNAV, right? Like the reason MicroStrategy trades above its MNAV, or when it used to, I think it still is right now by a little bit, is because, there's a host of reasons why you want exposure to MicroStrategy over pure Bitcoin, but there is a reason, right? Like, what is the reason to buy a venture fund above its actual MNAV? One reason could be, well, I want to get early exposure, so I'm willing to pay a premium. It's like, okay, sure. but this thing was trading 300% above it. So I was like, what is the actual reason? And I don't know if there was a meaningful reason for why people aped into it. But now it's down in a day. Like, the people just wake up and say, I don't want to pay more MNAV. Like, it's very confusing kind of how these are trading. Micron back above 800 as that, sorry, NAV. I should say NAV. Yes, that's the net asset value. The MNAV is the premium above it. So I should be saying NAV. But the NAV is comprised of the assets inside of RVI. And I don't know how volatile those assets are, but I guess they're volatile enough to be affecting the actual stock that hosts the assets. AMD 443, that's almost breaking green. Micron just broke green as well. 805, that's up. TSM, that continues to go. TSM actually getting a real breakout. I think TSM and Broadcom once again following Nvidia. Nebius 218, there you go. 218.39. This one is destroyed so many covered calls. It is kind of unbelievable. But the simple story about Nebius is they said they increased their power backlog. If they can increase their power capacity, that means they'll generate more deals, which means 2027, 28, 2029 growth forecasts theoretically will be guided up. And they wanted 3 gigawatts by the end of May. They're at 3.5. So it's, or by the end of the year, they're at 3.5 by the end of May. So, I mean, you had only good signs coming from their earnings. Ford, okay, why is Ford green? The reason Ford is green is because Morgan Stanley put out a report yesterday saying, we think Ford can be a beneficiary of hyperscaler AI contracts. And the exact quote is, Morgan Stanley said Ford could sign energy storage supply deals with large commercial customers, including hyperscalers, in the next few months. The firm estimates Ford Energy could be worth up to $10 billion. Energy is the bottleneck. Ford has a ton of capacity with their factories and a ton of infrastructure because they actually manufacture and make stuff. And in this economy right now, that is what matters more than the gross margins of a sleek software company. And so Ford might become the latest AI data center play that's out there. I think there's a chance for Ford to legitimately become a meme stock because it's $14. Everyone knows what Ford is. And if birds could become a meme stock, why can't Ford? And if Ford actually signs some real deals, then maybe it's not a meme. Maybe it's like legit revenue coming into the business and people will bid it up. So that's why I think people are excited for Ford at the moment. SoFi, are we going below 15? We are 15.24. Potentially going below that. Broadcom, that one continuing to break out with Nvidia 433.49 as that is up 4%. I'm getting SPAC vibes. It definitely feels a little weird with all these companies coming out and saying they have an AI narrative. Like 1000%, it reminds me of 2021 when every company just said we have a crypto. I mean, dude, even Palantir introduced Foundry for crypto. Like, it was kind of hilarious. That Foundry for crypto never became a thing. But the point is, you know, they tried to incorporate themselves into the crypto world, and that's how big crypto got. But AI is a lot more real than crypto, and I think that's also why the street is, you know, giving some excitement to this premium. Nvidia 233. Wow. 250 on the way after earnings. Is that what we're seeing? How much is Nvidia up year to date now? Nvidia, I think it's above 20% year to date. 23%. Yep, 23% as that is green. Rackspace, that's at down 4%. Copen is up 5% as well. BMNR definitely taking a dump right here as Ethereum and Bitcoin is still getting hit. Once again, I feel like a broken record saying this over and over again, but complaining about the names that are not working, which there are plenty of names not working, HIMS, Grab, SoFi, Robinhood, any of the software names, Ethereum, Bitcoin, like it just doesn't make sense to complain about them because you already know why they're not working. The question is, will you make a decision on why it's not working, which is double down and say, I'm buying the dip right now and hopefully in the future they will start working, or take your money out of them. But Shopify, massive earnings. It's not working. It's just not. Reddit, great earnings. 155 down to 150. It's just not working. And we all know why it's not working. We've analyzed it to death why it's not working at this point. And it sucks. But what can you do? Meta, I mean, 33% revenue growth. It is not working. Nebius is working as it hits 220. Like it's a battle between what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, not every portfolio is going to have everything that works. Not every portfolio is going to have everything that completely loses. But at the end of the day, a combination between those two, you only need a few that really win. And right now, the Nvidias, the Broadcoms, the AMDs, the Microns are the winners. Nvidia 232.73 as well. Where are the Qs? The Qs should be up. The Qs 719, that's an all-time high. Netflix also flipping a bit more green, trying to get back up to 90. Marvell got upgraded yesterday to $200 by Bank of America. Marvell 186. This was 168 on Monday. Tesla isn't working well. Tesla was at 370 a month ago. So at least it's, regained a lot of what it lost. But yeah, it's technically not breaking the all-time highs every day. But it definitely helped a lot of portfolios bouncing up from the mid 300s. AMD just flipped green. Again, those dips, they last ever so slightly. There you go, 449.34 as that flips up. Nokia, again, I did buy this yesterday, about 2,000 shares at $13.98. It is not an investment for me. It's a trade. The primary reason outside of there are some fundamental elements of the story that we'll talk about, and we have talked about over the past couple of days with 6G infrastructure, Nvidia investing, the Anduril partnership, their AI business growing 49% year over year. The option flow, though, is insane. I mean, it looks like the options market is saying that this thing has a chance to get up to 25. And maybe they become important enough as a company to justify that stock price. And quite frankly, when Micron was around 500, the option flow for 750 calls, 800 calls was unbelievable. And lo and behold, sometimes those option flows really do tell a story that can come true. And you're seeing Micron here at above 800. So I like the dynamics on that. And as a result, I think there is some element of momentum that this one could be riding. But for me, again, it's a trade and I'm riding the momentum here. It's that simple. So some net new capital, instead of buying, more SoFi or whatever, throw it into Nokia and then see, how this can play out. But it's also not one of those stocks to me that's like a meme stock. It could have turned into a meme stock, maybe, but there's a reason Nvidia invested in them, and there's a reason Nvidia established a partnership with them, and that I think is at least worth looking into when trying to analyze the company. But it's in the right thematic over Shopify right now, right? And that's the difference between some of these software names. Iran 57 coming back from the lows at 52. Very nice to see this one go green. Yes, the AI RAN for 6G is incredibly bullish for Nokia. Again, the article that I have coming out, it's going to have about 10 of these names from the database that I open sourced the other day that I'm at least looking at a lot more seriously. Corning's on there, Nokia's on there, and there's a few others that I guess you could say are lesser known. They're not as obvious as some of the names that have taken off. EOSC, that's down 9%, dude. Even with the energy names pumping, this one gets hit. But some of those names, might catch a bid. Fluence is also looking kind of interesting as well. It's just they diluted pretty heavy yesterday. But Fluence is kind of like a Bloom energy catch-up. They're not exactly the same, but there's one that I think is interesting to at least do some due diligence on. OSS, that's down 3%. As that is red. Amcor, are we pushing 75? We are indeed. 75.40. Can you reshare the database? It's aibuildouts.com. aibuildouts.com. What time is Cerebras? It's at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. is Cerebras. So I will not be live when that happens, but it's going to be 185 a share. And as soon as it goes live, the market will decide what to do with it. Intel 118. Intel 118. Iowan Q 55.46. That one's still kind of green. Celsius and Ondas at least having some relief today. Ondas in the drone space, and Celsius got hit pretty hard yesterday, but that one's recovering as well. What time is Cerebras European time? Okay, where in Europe? But if I'm just going to do Germany, 1 p.m. Eastern to Germany time is what? 7 p.m. Okay. 7 p.m. What you got? HIMS goes down 2.3%. Again, I have a friend who's heavy in HIMS, and he's just been waiting for this thing to pump, and it, got to 30 before the earnings, and then it dumps 20%. It's just one of those things where, again, it's like, it's not working. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't yell at the market. It's like the market doesn't want it. And you can say the market's being stupid, which is fine, but that's also cope, because the market's not just being stupid about him. They're being stupid about everything at that point. That's not in the theme that they care about. And again, the market is just people. At the end of the day, it's people like us and the institutional investors that have all decided Nebius at 220, even after this thing has run from basically 40 at the lows after their initial collapse, is a better deal at 220 than buying any of these other names that have been absolutely decimated and have not had their run. Like, that's the market is collectively deciding that. And I don't know if the market's necessarily wrong about that. It definitely is weird. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very weird to see many of these sectors not participate, but it's also where all the earnings growth is. Arista, that's up 3%. Cisco 170. It's called FOMO. So I think there's a part of FOMO towards it, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a structural paradigm shift, because you can't tell me software is dead for 5 months and everyone's just FOMOing their money into Micron. Like, I think that's a lot of institutional saying we need liquidity to buy Micron or something in the semi space, and we have to cut our losers. Now, we will be getting 13Fs, I think, by tomorrow. We might be getting some today after the bell, and we'll see if people in Q1 ended up buying the dip on software heavily. But if they didn't, it kind of proves that thesis as well for institutional investors. But wasn't AMD dead long ago? Yes, but AMD is in the right sector. So once again, this goes back to the question I was asking yesterday, and I'm curious what, if anyone has a response to this. Like, what is the narrative to get excited about software right now? I think software is a buy. I think ServiceNow is stupid trading at these levels. But what's the narrative to get someone excited about it besides valuation? And then even if you want to bring up valuation, there's a lot. I mean, Micron trades at 8 times forward earnings. That's a pretty exciting valuation if you believe that it's not cyclical. That is a way better valuation than whatever ServiceNow trades at, with way better margins, by the way. So what is the narrative that gets people to flip? I think, honestly, the narrative is going to have to be a crack in the semiconductor thesis, more so than like some amazing growth story of the software thesis, because we've had Reddit, Palantir, AppLovin, and Shopify show amazing growth, and that has not been enough to create the rotation. So it's probably a waiting game, but you just can't complain in the midst of waiting, right? Because we all know why the market doesn't want these names right now. Marvell, almost 190. Almost 190 to see if this one ends up going green. The narrative is Jensen said so. That's fair. It's just Jensen's only human at the end of the day. He can pump a lot of things. I don't know if he can pump software right now. He's trying. He is absolutely trying. It's factually not where all the earnings growth is. Yes, there is a lot of earnings growth in other sectors. 100% agreed. It's just the semis and the type of earnings growth they're putting up, the quality of beats, especially with the margins they have. It's what the street. I mean, look, Nebius destroyed earnings. Now, I know Nebius is not profitable. I know they're not expected to be profitable for a long time. I know there's dilution, etc. But the thematic is compute. The ROI is compute. You've got trillions of dollars chasing compute. And then Nebius is beating their earnings to supply compute. Same thing for Cisco. Maybe not exactly compute, but networking inside of data centers, which ends up leading to compute. And so even though a Shopify probably had a better earnings than a Nebius, if you actually really compare the numbers for numbers, it's not necessarily in the theme the market cares about. Ford, 7% as that continues to go green. Klarna, is that still up? Klarna was up 16. Klarna's up 12. The stock's down pretty heavily from IPO last year, but still up. The Clarity Act, I think 10:30, we start to get a vote on the Clarity Act. And then we're going to see what happens with crypto. Trump just filed moves that he made in 2026 inside of the stock market. It's 113 pages long. This is just coming out. This is official. Trump just signed it. I didn't even know Trump could trade. 3,642 transactions. He has more than $1 million of ServiceNow, Nvidia, Adobe, Workday, Oracle, Microsoft, Broadcom, Amazon, Uber, Apple, Boeing, Dell. Huh. He also has Palantir in this, and GE Aerospace, and Bloom Energy, and Intel. Okay, so it's obviously not him trading. It's most likely his estate, I guess you would say. I didn't know Trump was allowed to trade. I know he's been buying corporate debt of these companies, but corporate debt is way different than actual securities. Yeah, look at this. Dude, look, he was buying the dip. Bought Oracle on May 17th. Bought Texas Instruments on January 12th. Bought Dell on February 10th. Is this the first time we're seeing a president like legit trade? I feel like we never got this type of a disclosure from Biden or Obama or Bush. Like, I know their estates have certain like exposure to equities, but the direct equities themselves, he trades in a blind trust. Dude, I mean, that means Trump was in the Oval Office calling up whoever controls his I guess his estate, his trust, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to try to get the technical details on this and telling them to buy the dip. This is pretty incredible. Yeah, President Trump. This is signed by Trump. I can see his signature on this document right now. Marvell 189. Was that a leak? No, that was not a leak. That you have to file that with the SEC. It's just I don't think we ever had a president file this. Yeah, it's probably not him, to be honest. It's probably someone who controls it. I mean, maybe Trump has a little bit of input, but that is pretty incredible here to see. This is his signature. Yeah, look, this is a legit PDF. I can link it in the chat. Ford continuing to go up. You think Trump watches the stream? There it is. He submitted to the U.S. Office of Government Ethics. Look at that. Those are all the stocks. There's Palantir. He bought it on March 18th. There's another Palantir March 2nd. There's another Palantir January 6th. And there's another Palantir March 25th. We have Robinhood. We have a Robinhood. March 17th. March 11th. February 23rd. February 12th. And January 6th. He was buying the shit out of Robinhood. Do we have a SoFi? We have a SoFi. March 17th. January 27th. This is kind of crazy, bro. This is actually ridiculous. I'll link it right there in the chat. People can check it out. Donnie T. Trading right here. I just linked it in the chat. Iran, that's up 2%. Where is Nvidia? 231. What else should we search? I'll just say the number of times he traded it, so I don't have to say the date. ServiceNow, he bought it 10 times. 10 times he bought it. Some of these are sales. So ServiceNow has 7 purchases and 3 sales. Palantir had 5 purchases. SoFi had 3 purchases. There were no sales. Nvidia, he has, we should check Tesla. He has a purchase, a sale, a sale, a sale, a sale. He had 4 sales, 2 purchases. And then Nvidia, he has 5 purchases, no sales. That's pretty freaking incredible, dude. Micron below 800. Below 800. He bought SoFi, yes. He bought it. I will link it again right here in the chat. Dude, am I crazy or have we never had a president disclose something like this? Like, I don't think we've ever had that happen. I mean, that's a little crazy, bro. Rocket Lab's still down. Celsius up 5. HIMS is down. Market's kind of flat now. We're not getting a crazy move up or down. S&P still green, but nothing moving like crazy. Clarity Act again, 10:30. We'll get updates on that. Brian Armstrong says he's pretty bullish that it'll get passed. But we're going to see if that happens. Presidents usually don't buy shares during their time. I mean, that's what I thought. Do U.S. presidents have estates that trade stocks for them during their term? Yeah, it shows that this guy is not letting the market tank. He's invested in it, which for all of us as investors, right, it's pretty aligned on that thesis. The short answer is no. Gemini says presidents do not have estates that trade for them in the way a private wealth manager does. They typically use qualified blind trusts or keep their assets broadly diversified in index funds to avoid conflicts of interest. Well, this is probably what Donnie T said in March when his advisors asked if he was going to be buying the dip.
I doubled the size of it, you dumb person. It's double the size. You are not a smart person.
I mean, maybe we started a war so he could buy the dip. Maybe 745 on the S&P. Nvidia 232. This is crazy, dude. I don't think we've ever seen disclosures from a sitting president trading in and out of stocks. And he's literally trading them. He's not just buying them. There are purchases and sales in that documents. Is that legal? I mean, he submitted it to the Office of Ethics, so I guess it is. I just don't think we've ever seen it happen. Like, technically, yeah, it's legal. I don't think there's any rule that says you can't trade stocks if you're the president, just like there's no rule for Congress people that, David Sachs, when he joined to become the crypto AI czar, he liquidated all of his assets in the private markets. And I think he said he went into just index funds in the public market so that he wouldn't be seen as having conflicts of interest. Like, he liquidated his Grok stake, his SpaceX stake, which cost the guy a lot of money because those companies are going public now and, obviously at a much higher premium than what he paid for. But he really wanted the job and wanted no ethical concerns. Trump is just like, dude, I'm the president. If you've got an ethical concern, you can talk to the boss. Oh, wait, I am the boss. Guess what? I don't care. I mean, like, it feels like that's kind of how he's thinking about this. Bitcoin still below 80. Still below 80, 79, 765. Palantir getting a little bit of a bid today, 130, 175. It's holding the 130s. Below 130 gets ugly. So would be nice to see it stay above 130. Cisco, that's up 12. Silver's down again, which is why copper's down. Once again, silver and copper, as much as I think there's a legit copper thesis, they tend to trade with each other. So if you're long one, you kind of got to be long the other. But that is green. Or sorry, that is red. Silver down 5% now. Platinum dumping as well. That is also correct. Platinum is dumping now as well. Should I buy Poet? Again, if you are ready to buy Poet up 30% on the day and did not want to buy Poet when it was down 50%, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I didn't buy it when it was at 6. I'm not buying when it's an 18. Like, if you want to chase it, chase it. But it is the most retail thing ever to see a stock go down 50, be like, I'm not touching it. Then see it quadruple in a week, up 30% a day, be like, oh, now I want to get it. Like, it's just, you have to ask yourself, kind of, how are you navigating your own emotions when you see this type of stuff? And it's hard. I get it. It's hard. But, like, the price action itself can't be if you stayed away from it when it was down 50% for a reason, unless everything has changed to you and it's up 30%, well, nothing probably changed outside of the price, right? That you got to just ask yourself what makes sense mentally. Because then you got to be ready to hold it when it goes down. Because Poet's pretty freaking volatile. And if it goes down back to $10, which theoretically could happen, maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is the new floor. But it was just at 21. Now it's at 18. So it's not like it can't go down a little bit. You have to think about that. Tanner says, I just bought Poet and we'll have a video out today paid for by Poet to sell to you guys. Yeah, and that was the other big thing that people hated about it. It's like the company disclosed they pay YouTubers to pump the stock a few years ago. So it's always been a little bit shady. Yes, they got a new deal today. But the problem is, if you're buying it on the new deal and you didn't buy it $12 ago thinking they could get a new deal, then you're just chasing it. which is, I mean, look, if that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. I've chased stocks before as well. But you got to be honest with yourself and, you know, not get wrapped up in the price action. Like when it fell to 7 and you didn't think they could get a deal, now that they got a deal and you're buying it 300% later, now you have to wait for the next deal for it to continue to pump, right? Or wait for more FOMO to come in. But a lot of that has already been priced in so far. And so I think that's just the logic on how to deal with it. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because, again, like for the people like that are so excited about this stock that's up today, if there was no excitement when it was down in the dumps, it's just classic FOMO, which is, you know, it gets mentally toxic at some point if you keep seeing it happen over and over again. Amcor right there, 74.20, as that continues to go green. Redwire, like when this thing diluted by 350 million and fell to $8, and now it's at 12.80, you know, it's like the time to buy it was a while ago. And remember, when you don't buy something, sometimes there's a reason why you're not buying it. The price might disagree with you, aka the price might go against your thesis for buying it or not buying it. Now, if you're short, that's a different question. If you're short, you're screwed if the price goes up, right? But if you're just on the sidelines, mentally, you have to tell yourself, well, I didn't buy it for a reason. And maybe my reason was wrong, but if my reason felt legitimate at the time, then there it is. That's my logic for why I don't qualify for the gains. And if you did buy it when it fell heavily on the dip and it goes up, like Nvidia, when it fell to freaking 165 for whatever reason in March, like, yeah, you qualify for the gains and you don't have to be chasing it at 231 right now. Like, who's really buying Nvidia? Put in the chat if you're buying it at Nvidia at 231 right now or buying AMD at 450. Like, who's actually buying these right now? Because I think most of us did our job a while ago. And by a while ago, I mean literally a month and a half ago, not even a year ago. I'm not doubling down here at 231. Like, not at all-time highs. It happened. The move happened. And if you missed Nvidia, then you missed it. I mean, like, yeah, there's probably still alpha there, but like there's now more risk now that's at all-time highs. And maybe you just don't want to take that risk. OSS, that's down 2%. I would trade it. Well, trading is differently. I mean, trading is different, right? If you're trading it, you're trading it. But like actually buying to hold it is a whole different question. I've been trading a lot more though, guys. This VWAP shit, it matters. Okay. This VWAP shit, I am literally spending hours a day trying to understand technicals at a deeper level. And ChatGPT honestly is helping a lot. It's really like I put a picture of a chart, I like explain it, I try to describe it myself, and she tells me if I'm doing good or bad on the exponent. The VWAP freaking matters, especially if you're trading. At least for beginners, above VWAP, claim and break above, more bullish, reject, break below, lower lows, more bearish. That VWAP matters, bro. Volume weighted average, it matters. Why is it a she? Dude, ChatGPT is a she. I don't care what anyone says. At least for me, it's a she. Even my mom calls it a she. You've just discovered VWAP. I've known what it is, but like I could tell you what it stands for. But yes, like now I think I actually understand it at a deeper level. As you can see on Webull, the VWAP's actually in the what is this? The orange line right there. And then you have the upper and lower bands on the VWAP. I use TradingView though more for trading. And once I get good at TradingView, maybe we switch from Webull to TradingView on the stream. But TradingView is phenomenal when it comes to trading and like actually looking at the indicators that you need. But yeah, it's kind of fun, dude. You know, and I think it was kind of inevitable that I would start trading a little bit more because I mean, like, I'm obsessed with markets and I cover it every single day. Like, at some point, the long-term investing, it just gets kind of boring. You know, like it's fine for someone who's like not literally in every single piece of news that comes out every day. But when you're someone like me who's just like obsessed with everything, like, yeah, there's a desire to take some trades here. So I will keep you guys updated on the journey. 428 on Broadcom. That's up 3%. What photonics plays would be reasonable? I think Corning is one of the better ones that's out there. I have not done a ton of due diligence on AAOI, but this one has absolutely exploded. Lumentum and Coherent are the ones that Jensen chose. It's just, you know, those stocks have run a lot, so you're going to have to suck it up and buy the chart. Lumentum down 3% today. I mean, Lumentum was up 5% or down 7% every day for the past 2 weeks, ever since earnings. So this is one where your entry at 990 could go to 800. Your entry at 1100 could go to 1300, given how volatile it is. But there is absolutely a large demand for optics, and it is the next bottleneck outside of memory that the market is deeply paying attention to. INFQ has earnings today. D. Lee, thanks for the super chat. What is your take on quantum? I do not have a fully structured take on quantum. I believe it is more real than not. Let me say that. I would say 2 years ago, I was like, I don't know what this is. And 2 years later, I'm like, no, this is definitely more legit than not. Quite frankly, I think there's definitely a necessity to pick a few quantum stocks and just throw them in a basket and not look at them for the next 10 years, because IBM's working on it, Google's working on it, Microsoft's working on it. Like, it seems inevitable that there will be breakthroughs in quantum computing. I can't fully explain to you everything about qubits and all that stuff, but I have come to the conclusion that, yeah, the stocks are crazy expensive given the multiples and the valuation, but their importance is what gives them a premium. And that's kind of what Skrelly got wrong over the past 2 years, where he said, the business models are stupid. It's like, okay, it could be stupid and the tech might not be there yet, but the potential of the business application is very obvious to the market. And that's why these stocks have held their momentum. I mean, even Jensen has acknowledged, after basically shitting on the quantum companies last year, that the quantum companies are more important than we think. So we'll cover their earnings today for INFQ. D-Wave had an okay earnings. That stock fell about 6%. IONQ had a really good earnings the other day. D-Wave down about 3% today, right now. But these stocks have had a much bigger move. Celsius, 29.58. As that continues to go green. AMAT does have earnings today. That is correct. AMAT does have earnings today. ChatGPT says quantum may come in 2040 or longer. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of smart people that feel quantum is going to be a lot more relevant in the future than I don't know if it's 2040, 2035. I mean, for all the Bitcoin people, you've got a lot of people saying quantum very seriously could crack cryptography. I'm not educated enough to agree or disagree with that, but there's always been that risk from a crypto angle as well. OSS still down 0.5%. Is Hood red? Hood is red. Hood's been flat like SoFi. It's kind of been really good for covered calls, quite frankly, since they've been so flat. Amit, tell us your thesis on why you wouldn't buy the dip on undervalued Microsoft, aka micro dump. That is hilarious. I sold my full Microsoft position and used the capital to increase my Oracle instead. Look, I don't hate that. Oracle's probably catching a bid sooner than Microsoft because it's more tied to data center and compute. Having said that, I think Microsoft's going to be a long, steady compounder. I have way more Meta than I have Microsoft, and I have not sized up my Microsoft position, quite frankly, because of what I've been talking about every day. Do you want to put money in something that's going to be a loser for now, or something that's part of the thematic for now, and that loser will eventually turn into a winner, but you're just going to have to wait on it? And I've got enough Meta where I'm like, you know what? If Meta is my loser out of the big two right now, Meta and Microsoft, then I'm okay with that being the majority. Oh, I also just like Meta more than Microsoft in terms of their growth. Now, Microsoft's a better company holistically, if we're being honest. But Meta's valuation is way more compelling. It's half of Microsoft's market cap. And I think the street is being pretty dumb around how they're treating the ads business. Now, I get why the street isn't happy that Zucks isn't diversifying away from just ads. But I disagree that that business should be valued at 18 times earnings. There's the Trump list for those that are asking for it again. Let's see if he freaking bought Meta. Let's see if Donnie T bought some Meta. Wow, there's a lot of Meta buys here. There are 12 purchases, 4 sales of Meta, which means technically we don't know if he even has any more Meta, because if he bought it 12 times and then he sold all of the 12 times he bought it in those 4 times, yeah, we don't actually have disclosures on like what he owns right now, unless it only says purchases, which for a few of the stocks it only says purchases and not sales. You just Command F the ticker and then you'll see purchase or sale. And by the way, the average amount of every one of these purchases on the low end is 250 to 500. On the high end is 1 to 5 million. So Donnie T is not dropping below 250 racks on any of these stocks. He's using the VWAP. Exactly. He's using the VWAP. I'm serious though. If anyone wants to get better at trading, just screenshot a chart, throw it into ChatGPT, and say, help me understand this. And my goodness, it is just, I've learned a lot of things from ChatGPT, but to be able to learn like just to break down over and over again key concepts, and then for me to practice, like, hey, here's what I think is going on in this chart. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. And then for it to come back and like really give me constructive criticism it's just a new era for like learning things and being productive. And like, staying up at night and burning the midnight oil and trying to understand a new skill that you want to learn that can hopefully help you in life. Like, it is just incredible that you can access that for free. Nvidia back to 232. RVI, is that continue to go down? That continues to go down 30%. That continues to go down. Presidential gains Discord. Yeah, Donnie T needs to start a Discord, bro. Martin says, I asked Grok to tell me what was the best price level to buy Micron, and it worked. Yeah, I mean, the thing about asking AI what, especially if you showed a chart, do you think this is longer or short, is it's going to be super conservative. Because like built into the DNA of these models is they don't want you to lose money. So they're not going to tell you to just like, oh, the chart looks bullish, buy it. Like, they're going to try to be really critical and only give you setups that make sense. Like Nvidia, it's only about 45 minutes into the day, but as you can see, it keeps bouncing off that VWAP, which is at 231, 231.38. And it bounced right there at 10 o'clock. It bounced again after going below it at 10:11, and now it's bouncing right here at 10:15. It also bounced at 9:41. So if this continues to bounce off the VWAP, that tends to be more long than short, at least on the minute time frame. And so, ChatGPT tries to have a better way of like explaining that if you're trying to actually trade it. Broadcom right there, 432, as that continues to go green. Yeah, but it told me to buy SoundHound at 11. Where is SoundHound? SoundHound is at $8. Well, it's not always going to be right. It did say to buy Meta before earnings. Every model said, yup, Meta's going to go up 10% after earnings. And Meta went down 10%, and Google was the one that ended up going up 10%. Even Gemini told me Meta would be the one to buy over Google. So it's not really good for earnings predictions. But I also think the models were just like, dude, this is obvious. Like Meta obviously should be closer to 750. And once the market dumped Meta again, to me, that was like, okay, we're in a different market. If you're not providing if you're not the beneficiary of CapEx or providing the picks and shovels for CapEx, that's it. You're done. The market doesn't care about you. And it is what it is. It is what it is. Cerebras, do we have the price for Cerebras? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I said this thing could pump to 300. Looks like Bloomberg's reporting this is going to open at 363. Yeah, I'm not getting any Cerebras shares today. I'm not trading this thing. I'm staying on the sidelines. I'm out. I'm just not risking it at that level. This thing either gets destroyed from 363 or it's going to 500 today. Like if it opens at 363, that means the traders are going to start buying it at 363. And if they take, imagine this thing gets to 600-700. Like imagine this thing pulls a Figma and 4 or 5x's it in a day. And in this market, you could sustain that valuation, I think, if you're a semiconductor name. Now, again, the biggest thing Cerebras has going for it as Oracle turns green is the OpenAI $20 billion collaboration. Nvidia right there, 233. That is another all-time high. But it's going to be trading at like 300 times sales. It's going to be trading at something stupid. Like, yeah, semiconductors are the most important thing in the world, but my goodness, at some point, like, So good luck if you're trading it. But I think if it's going to open up 100% higher than what's expected, it's going to be hard to buy shares, because if it goes down, you're only going to blame yourself. Nebius is not stopping. See, this is why Cerebras is probably going to pump. You got Nvidia all-time highs. You got Nebius 225 all-time highs. Where's Qualcomm? That's down. Okay, let's see if it loses 200. If it doesn't, then maybe it's definitively below the VWAP at 205 right now, and it's below the lower band at 203. But Nebius and Nvidia continue to move higher. People are going to buy at 363, sell it at 180. Well, I think the shorts might come in, but I also feel the shorts, I think the shorts could easily get squeezed on this thing on a day like this if it runs. It's very, very possible. Retail Randy, thanks for the super chat. I bought Poet at 7 before the first run, sold it at 12 the day it dumped. Feel a bit of FOMO for not buying back in at the bottom. There are better risky names. Yeah, look, you made money. Bought at 7, sold at 12. If you were not willing to stomach it going back to 7, then it's hard to see it right up to 19. So in this market, profit still matters, right? Because you kind of don't know when shit hits the fan or if it's going to hit the fan. So only investors are the type of breed that get upset that they didn't make as much money as they could have. But if you're still making money, like, it's always important to remember, well, I still made money for pressing a couple buttons. Like, the majority of the world does not make money like that. Are you adding Akamai? So I added this thing at 148. They had a new deal this morning. They were at 160 in the pre-market, 156 right now. It was another partnership, if I'm not wrong. I'll try to find it. But that's what got the street excited. A couple of stats about Anthropic, because the CFO just did a new podcast. Net dollar retention is over 500%. We got excited at Palantir's 150%. I mean, this is unbelievable. Anthropic's first dollar of revenue came in March of 2023. 90% of the code inside of Anthropic is written by Claude Code. Run rate went from 9 billion to 30 billion in 1 quarter. Now it's on pace for 50 billion. They signed 2 double-digit million-dollar commits in a 20-minute Uber ride to the podcast. So the CFO who did the podcast signed 2 minimum $10 million deals while he was in the Uber riding to the podcast studio, because that's how much demand that he continues to see. 9 of the Fortune 10 are customers as Nvidia hits 234. Congrats, everyone. Nvidia really proving that it is the king in the semiconductor race. 100 billion combined commitment of compute, 30 different product and feature releases in January alone. The finance team has built a library of over 70 Claude skills. Anthropic has raised 75 billion since he joined. All 7 co-founders are still at the company. When Meta and others made huge poaching offers, Anthropic lost 2 people on the technical side, while other labs lost dozens. I mean, this company is just unbelievable. And it, once again, when you hear those stats, it proves why the software names are dead right now. It's like if they're being compared to that, there's just no way they can compete. And, I mean, this thing, we talk about Cerebras opening up 96% above. I mean, I feel like Anthropic's going to IPO at $2.5 trillion at this point. $1 trillion doesn't even seem like it's possible here. We're going to see how the market interprets it. 234 right here on Nvidia. Fiserv has a deal with OpenAI. Doesn't boost the stock at all. Do you think it's a buy? I have not looked into Fiserv too much. I know this one got hit pretty hard. I think I'd stay away from it just because it's in the fintech space. And, the weirdest thing about this bull market is XLF is not participating, folks. It's just kind of weird that the financials, even with all these IPOs, are still down 6% year to date. Like, if, for the people complaining about the stocks that are not moving, financials aren't moving. Like, you can't even complain about your individual stock. That's not, the financial sector is not participating in this bull market. So how can you be super upset that your specific software stock isn't? When an entire sector that always participates in a bull run is not. Like, it is such a bifurcated bull run happening in one part of the sector. And thankfully, all of us have some exposure to it, whether it's AMD, Nvidia, if you went heavy in Micron, et cetera. But if you're not majority exposed to it, then yeah, you have a lot of losers right now that are just not doing anything, which is okay. Like, that is okay. That is part of the game of investing. but it is not the type of bull run that we've had over the past couple of years where everything runs. Oracle right there, 194. Does that equal a fake bull run? This has been the debate for the past few weeks now. I default no, because every time I try to get a reason for why this is fake, the earnings growth, Anthropic's growth, Anthropic needs a lot of compute, so the 17,000 supply chain companies that are required inside of, as Elon said, building the blades and the turbine to eventually help Anthropic secure its compute, those companies matter in a world in which we're experiencing this revolution, and token generation continues to go up and up and up. So it is annoying more than it's fake, in my opinion, that the other stocks aren't participating, but I also can comprehend rationally why the other stocks are not participating. Does that mean they're good deals? I think in the long term, yes. In the short term, absolutely not, because Nebius at 205 on the dip yesterday was a better deal than any of the stocks that are not participating in this rally. As Bitcoin hits 80,000 and Rocket Lab back to its highs from yesterday, 127.50. Would you give up on Zeta or Microsoft? It's not about giving up. It's more so about your expectations, right? So giving up means you sell it and you move it to something else, which is fine. And I think that's totally reasonable if you're afraid of the opportunity cost. It's more about having better expectations. Like the expectations for a software name, if Microsoft can't catch a bid, means that a Zeta is not going to catch a bid either. And that's it. That's like, it's black or white, in my opinion. Like either you're in the name that, I mean, like CrowdStrike and Palo Alto, they're software names, but they finally started catching a bid because the market is shifting their tone on AI and cybersecurity. That's why these names are outperforming in the software space. Microsoft doesn't have that narrative. Zeta doesn't have that narrative. Unfortunately, Palantir, even with their growth, doesn't have that narrative. AppLovin and Reddit and advertising don't have that narrative. And so they end up falling. MRAM is down 6%. I know people have been talking about this 139 from 52. So that one's taking a little bit of a dip as well. Any thoughts on why Rocket Lab is not selling off? It is very simple. Like SpaceX. That's been the thesis ever since March when it was filed that SpaceX was going public in June. That's it. That's the reason. It's a proxy to SpaceX. Now, they had a great earnings, fundamental company, all that stuff. Like you know, we talked about the earnings in depth, but it's SpaceX. Like right now, people are seeing Rocket Lab at a $70 billion market cap and SpaceX at $2 trillion. They're seeing the execution by Rocket Lab, and they'll be like, well, why wouldn't I just play the space theme via Rocket Lab? Yeah, Neutron as well. But outside of all the fundamentals on Rocket Lab, which we've spent so much time talking about, it is a SpaceX proxy that I think the institutional guys are realizing, if we missed Micron, what's the next theme that, you know, we have some reasonable chance to get into where there's upside? And, you know, that seems to be space, at least in the short term with the SpaceX IPO. So that's why I think that one is going green. That would be discounting excellent execution. So no, because we've talked in depth about how strong the execution is. But I mean, dude, it's trading at 107 times sales. Like, I don't think anyone is discounting execution. And if you're a bull and you think that multiple is discounting execution, then be my guest to be as bullish as you want to be. But for a not profitable company doing $700 million in revenue, trading at a $73 billion market cap, I don't think the street is discounting how well they've executed. I think the street is saying, okay, along with that execution, let's put something else on the table that gets us to buy this thing at these levels after it's run 70% in 2 days. And that's probably a hint of, hey, SpaceX is going to be a big catalyst for the space industry. Like, I don't think that's controversial. But if we think it's all fundamentals, then that's fine as well. Why is Oklo down? Oklo had a kind of crappy earnings, down 6%. Yeah, they did dilute the other day. Yeah, they diluted yesterday. I think after hours where we saw that one going red. Tree, thanks for the super chat. Should I trim my winners, Nvidia, Micron, SanDisk, and buy losers? What do you think? Currently, I have no debt and I want to secure gains. All right, what do people think? How do we answer that question? Should I trim my winners like Nvidia, Micron, and SanDisk and buy losers right now? It's actually a legit question. I had a call with another friend yesterday who's thinking, like, man, ServiceNow looks pretty freaking cool, and I have a lot of Nvidia. Is there a world in which after earnings, let's say Nvidia pumps to 240, 250, I just rotate? I don't know what the answer to that question is. I think if you're feeling super uncomfortable around the semis, then yes, maybe that's maybe that's something to do. But at its core, right, if you're talking about alpha and you're talking about the greatest industrial revolution we've ever seen, I think I'm not selling Nvidia here. Like I think if people are in AMD, I don't think you sell, like you just Nebius, like you just kind of let them ride. I feel like if we are as compute constrained as the market believes. Having said that, if you're overweight on those positions and you're like, look, inevitably, I know there's going to be some pullback and I want to capture some of these gains. Yeah, take a little bit off the table and transition into some of the stocks that are losing, because once again, being greedy when others are fearful eventually pays off. It hasn't paid off for the past 5 months, but obviously eventually, if it does, that would be, a decent rotation. Cerebras shares indicated at $380 each. Wow. Goodness, man, this is going to be one of the craziest IPOs out there. Yeah, or as 30 in a Wake Up says, you could sell covered calls on your winners and use the premium to buy some losers, right? And then if your shares get called away, they get called away, and you don't complain about it because you were thinking of selling it anyway in the first place. Okay, let's get someone on the show who can actually help explain what's going on with the semiconductor stocks and what's also happening with this Cerebras IPO, so we can understand what's happening here. The Clarity Act will be voted on over the next hour. When I get results on it, I will let you guys know what happens. We'll see if Bitcoin and the other crypto assets react to it. But yes, it is being voted on right now. It was supposed to start at 10:30. So once we get a response to that, we will talk about if that did get passed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jose.
Good morning. Good morning. How's it going, man?
Good morning, dude. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty excited. I mean, I just saw Nvidia at 230 plus. Super exciting there. And semiconductor market is still pretty good. So I can't complain, if I may be honest. I can't complain at all.
Dude, this must be a crazy time for you covering the semis. Like, your whole life is dedicated to the semis, and the market only cares about the semis.
It is, but it's also it's a funny part, because it's like if I even mention anything about risk, it's like I'm a bear, even though I'm not. It's you either have to be 100% bull or you're a fake bull.
Yeah, like you can't mention a stock that's trading at 100 times sales might have a little bit of juice cooked into its narrative. Like, it's not just all fundamental. I mean, but I think that speaks to how split this market is. Some people are like, no, we're going to the moon, and all the bears are completely wrong. The bears like, all of this is fake. And no one wants to be in the middle and say, well, there are some weird things happening, like the financials not participating, like oil above 100. But I can acknowledge why the market is so tilted on buying Cerebras at 396. So let's start with that conversation. What the hell is this company, and why is their IPO going to be 2x above the listing price?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy because it was already oversubscribed, right? I think they increased the price twice. It was originally at 115, then they said about 145, and now we're seeing 185, and now we're hearing reports that it's actually going to open up at north of $300 based on the demand. It paints volume that there's plenty of money still out there for the AI story, right? There's still plenty of money out there for the AI story. I think it's an indication of maybe how some of these AI IPOs that we're going to see later this year are going to go. Just to put in valuation, I think at $185, the stock was going to be at around a $56 billion market cap. Now at 350, I mean, that's going to be closer to $100 billion market cap. The main excitement here is they do have two big kind of wins, at least in the AI space. The first win that they have, and one thing, let's just back up. What do? They create an AI chip. They kind of go a little different route where instead of making small chips like Nvidia, they decide to make one massive giant chip wafer like the size of a dish. They mentioned that because of making it as one big chip, you remove a lot of the complexity of building an AI system, like interconnects, right? Nvidia needs to connect a lot of chips together. They're saying, why do we need to connect a lot of chips together? We already have one massive chip. because of the size, you're also able to do different types of memory solutions. They do kind of SRAM, which they don't get as crazy inflection in pricing, kind of like the HBM market, right? So there are some gains there. And their main thing is, because this chip is good at giving certain AI models, it's a niche market, right? That's important to remember. It's a niche market. Certain AI models, the ability to respond extremely fast, like in seconds, opposed to thinking for minutes. So that's the big end of this company. The two big wins that I mentioned is they have a contract with OpenAI, where OpenAI is expected to build 750 megawatts of capacity with this chip, and they can actually extend that to go up to 2 gigawatts if it goes extremely well. The other one is they do have a partnership with Amazon, with Amazon's Trainium. Trainium is going to be used for one part of the workload for AI, and then the Cerebras chip is expected to do the other part of the AI workload. So when you have two big customers who are crucial and critical, in my opinion, to the AI ecosystem, that I guess paints a picture of, look, this is not just a random startup. It's something that has legs. It's not a guarantee, but it has legs to move.
Should it be getting this type of premium, though, in your financial eyes? Your hesitancy tells me enough. I got it.
Yes, I mean, it's priced on the growth, right? And it's priced that OpenAI goes and does this partnership, and
but the growth is just one customer, right? Like,
yeah, Amazon is a customer that they have a contract agreement with. I don't think they actually have a backlog from them just yet. But I think on March, on just a few days before GTC, Amazon mentioned that with their ASIC chip, they're going to connect it to Cerebras chips. So that's a potential tailwind as well. So the market is really pricing in that these stories are going to paint through. And obviously, in a CPU, not a CPU, in the AI chip shortage that we're in, your chances of success increases a little bit, because your customers need to go with other players, right? So I do think it's price. I'm not buying this. I think I was looking at it at the 115 price target when it was at about a $35 billion valuation. I didn't think that was crazy. $100 billion valuation. I'm not even gonna look at it.
As Nvidia right here is 2 cents away from 235, which is pretty damn incredible to see. But so people have painted Cerebras as the Nvidia killer. I imagine you would disagree with that.
Oh, 100% disagree. I mean, it's different types of workloads, right? OpenAI is only going to use them for a certain type of model, it seems, right? I think they're using it mainly for some of their smaller models, for certain solutions, right? That's in this AI market, we are seeing that there is need for niche spaces, and niche spaces are pretty big. A company can be successful if they're in this chip space, if they're providing a solution for just a niche portion of it. I mean, Nvidia is starting to do that now, right? They recently made the acqui-hire of the Grok LPU, right? They're either going to sell Vera Rubin as a standalone product, or Vera Rubin with the LPU. And that's a niche market that has an opportunity. And niche markets are becoming bigger just because the total TAM is increasing. So Cerebras has its niche opportunity. It's not the overall killer for Nvidia. Especially with Nvidia now and the LPU we're going to see this upcoming year. I'm not losing sleep about competition. Now the market might perceive it out differently, though, right? So you might get a lot of media news, a lot of things. Oh, this is the Nvidia killer. That might create some price movement on Nvidia, but as a long-term investor, I would consider that all noise.
Okay, so I have a question about Cerebras and Nvidia's acquisition of Grok in the context of Micron. So HBM, we know there's a ton of demand. Cerebras uses SRAM architecture, which is less reliant on HBM. Nvidia acquired Grok's LPU architecture to also, I think, theoretically, become more efficient and have less reliance on having that much HBM on the chips. Is there a world where Cerebras and Nvidia continue to innovate aggressively on the inference, I guess the inference architecture that doesn't require as much HBM? And is that a legitimate threat to Micron or and SanDisk and all this? Or do we have so much demand for memory that even if Nvidia innovates a little bit there along with Cerebras, it's not going to matter because these companies are still going to sell a lot of chips?
Even though the market thinks I am a memory bear, which I'm not, I just throw some of the risk out there. I don't think LPUs and Cerebras chips are a threat to the HBM market. I think, for example, the use case of these SRAMs are very unique for certain AI workload solutions. The reason NVIDIA has decided, I mean, NVIDIA still uses plenty of HBM for their core GPU. That's not going to change. They're going to continue to use it for Vera Rubin. They're going to use it for Feynman and whatever they go on from there. I don't think we're going to see a slowdown in HBM demand. The main thing that's happening is AI is evolving in so many different places, and you need to find in, let's say, this area, where can I optimize it? So for, let's say, long context and you want fast throughput, that's where you need a mixture of GPUs and LPUs. So there are going to be niche markets where you're going to be more reliant on SRAM, but I would still say the total addressable market in the AI space is still going to be very highly dependable on HBM. So while I see other points for the HBM market, I think SRAM is not a thing I would put in the bearish thesis.
Fair point. Nvidia, she's pulling a little bit of an AMD moment from a couple weeks ago. What do you do when it goes up this much? Do you just sit back and relax, or I guess how are you thinking of it going into earnings?
Yeah, I mean, right now, just sitting back and relax. I mean, this is a company, right? A giant sitting at 25 forward PE ratio, maybe with the recent gains closer to 26, 27, but that's still crazy. This is a company expected to accelerate growth for the next 2 quarters. We still are having been seeing the LPU moment. I think Grok LPU is going to be crucial for NVIDIA. This is, and this Grok LPU is a very first iteration. The way they're going from this on out is even better and better. So I do believe NVIDIA is going to continue to be a beast here. I mean, I don't see a slowdown in AI anytime soon. Yeah, I pretty much, at least for NVIDIA, I really just sit back and watch.
Nebius, did you have any thoughts on their earnings? And in the same vein, CoreWeave, I know you covered that call. I could not find out why CoreWeave dumped. So any red flags you saw from those guys?
You know, it's I'm gonna sound a little salty here. I don't get what's the hate for CoreWeave here. I mean, Nebius had great earnings, right? We saw growth in revenue, massive growth in revenue. They increased capex, right? They increased capex. They mentioned 90% of their capex is already covered through some of the funds that they did. They did $2 billion, I think, from Nvidia, and then they did some not market offerings, but I know they did. I forget what it's called.
Convertible notes.
Convertible notes. Thank you. They did some convertible notes to raise money as well. But the question to me is, these two are now sitting at an equal market cap. I just think that's crazy. I think that these two sitting at a similar market cap is crazy, because
you think CoreWeave should be worth a lot more.
Basically. I don't know if there's some misprice somewhere. And my main thought process is, if we saw CoreWeave for the full year revenue, they expect somewhere around $4 billion. I think CoreWeave is going to hit that in Q3 alone. So in one quarter, you're going to hit what a company's total revenue is going to do in a full year, and you're sitting at similar market caps. And your biggest fear is kind of the debt that everybody's going to be building up over time. Yeah. So it's more of like, I'm hoping for Nebius shares. Nebius is rightly priced. The one that's wrongly priced is CoreWeave, right? Because then we can all win. But that was, I think, my biggest thought process, and me just being salty that I have CoreWeave, even though it's still green.
So you would say CoreWeave's a better buy than Nebius right now?
I mean, unfortunately, if I would have said that in the past few weeks, which I still believe the answer is wrong, and I'm pretty sure if I keep saying it, the answer is going to continue to be wrong. But for me, yes, CoreWeave is definitely a favorite. But I really do enjoy purely the AI story. I know with Nebius, you have the AV ride, you have all these other avenues as well. I'm purely just focused on AI infrastructure, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, I would say one company that I like a lot more after earnings, Iran. I think Iran actually had really good earnings.
What was your take on that? Because a lot of people felt the Nvidia deal was like some fake, like we'll invest in you if you figure stuff out. It wasn't a direct investment like Corey Benevia. So how did you interpret that?
Yeah, so that part was a little bit off. That part I wasn't too excited about, but there were three other things, and I don't really have any direct shares of Iran. But it was one I was a little bit more not bearish on, but I was just saying Iran was just going to ride the wave. It didn't really have like that strength. I think this recent earnings, it kind of changed my mind that it's going to ride the wave and it has the strength. The first thing was they made an acqui-hire of a company that's going to help with software orchestration of GPUs. So they're improving their software stack. I thought that was a really smart move on their end. The second thing, they made an acquisition of a European-based data center company to kind of get the exposure there. And I think it was about 400 megawatts. I forget the actual number, but that was an extremely big win. And then with Nvidia, there was a contract that they got from Nvidia, which I thought was bigger than the investment potential. But the investment that the contract that they got from Nvidia, the market paints it usually as a backstop. I don't consider these backstops. So Nvidia rented out GPUs for them. I forget what was the price. But what Nvidia does this is the only real customers Iran can really make infrastructure for are big players like your Microsoft, right? A small company, let's say I had a small AI company, I couldn't go to Iran and say, hey, build me an infrastructure because I'm only going to rent it out for what, a month, 2 months, 3 months. So for Iran, it doesn't make sense to go for the smaller player. What Nvidia does is, look, build this infrastructure. I'll put the contract in. If you don't get the demand, I'll cover it for you. But luckily, I hear everything that's happening in the ecosystem. I know that there's demand. So you're going to get that other customer that's going to rent you out for 3 months, for 4 months, for 6 months, for 7 months. And you start to get that customer diversification. So I think those three things got me pretty excited for Iran, even though I don't own it. So hopefully I'm not giving the bad luck to Iran shareholders here. But I really think those three things were pretty important that maybe the top and bottom line numbers don't really show.
Let's do a couple of these rapid fires on these semiconductor names, but I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of how you're thinking of the neoclouds. Nvidia 236. She's having her moment, folks. She's having her moment. Just real quick on earnings, I'm assuming you think they're going to crush 80% growth, and then we'll see how the stock reacts.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to crush earnings, going to crush revenue. Guidance is going to be insane. Vera Rubin is coming out the second half of this year. LPUs are doing LPUs is going to be crazy. They've been in the forefront of the CPU space, so they're going to get that CPU revenue as well. They kind of have the full stack solution. I just can't see where they miss guidance or where they miss in earnings. Now, how much is that priced in? Different story, but they're not missing a beat.
Are you worried that only the semis are running in this bull market? Is that concerning to you? Or as a semiconductor investor, you're like, yeah, I mean, this is the sector that matters right now.
I mean, I would say 100% of my portfolio is in somewhere tech. In tech, in the semiconductor. I think my biggest non-tech names or semiconductor names are like meta platforms, which you can still consider a part of this race. So for me, I'm happy. But I do believe long-term, you have a lot of opportunities in the software space, right? And it's just, are you able to last that thesis or do you get FOMO, right? Because buying a software company right now may be a great price action 5 years from now. But if it takes 3 years, 2 years for a real price movement to move, are you strong enough to hold it, or do you FOMO into something else and then screw up? So I think if you have a thesis, you have to stick with it, and you have to understand that the market sometimes takes a lot longer to play out on your thesis.
Qualcomm. Do you like this on the dip from 240 to 200? And any updated thoughts on how this one's moving?
I mean, the CPU space, right? When I was here last time prior to their earnings, I mentioned is what is the market going to price in? Is it going to price in their data center, or is it going to price in their slowdown on consumer? They're pricing in their potential growth on data centers. I mean, for me, I have plenty exposure on CPU shortage, so I'm not going into Qualcomm. Maybe if you're looking at a CPU shortage play, Qualcomm could be the play there. But to me, CPU shortage, I have AMD luckily, and then you also have the opportunity of Nvidia in the CPU market. But CPU shortage, potential AI accelerators are the growth thesis for Qualcomm, as the market is just looking at data center now.
Intel, is that on the watch list yet, or AMD's the better CPU play?
I mean, with Intel, I mean, you get the opportunity. I personally don't want to. I mean, you have the manufacturing push. You have them getting a lot of contracts now. There's potential rumors of Nvidia and other users going for them. Their earnings, they talked about advanced packaging. So Intel bulls definitely got the money they deserve. In the CPU shortage, I look at the other thing instead.
Yeah, the Intel thing is interesting to me as well, because like ARM ended up getting a bid because of CPU architecture as well. Obviously, Qualcomm getting that too. So I think Intel and AMD laid the foundation for what this CPU, I guess, agentic revolution would look like. More agents need more computers, which means they need more CPUs. And now we're just starting to see if the stocks ultimately react to that. If we have any rapid fire, put any tickers in the chat. We'll get Jose's quick thoughts on them, and then we'll let him get out of here. What the chip happened, even though the chip has happened, is his newsletter.
And it's still happening.
It's probably going to keep happening. You can subscribe to it there. And yeah, dude, I'm proud of you, man. You've built an entire community around an entire sector that is now the basis for this market's bull run. So it's pretty incredible, dude. And I think you'd be enjoying it.
And it's fun. I mean, the community is filled with it's fun when the community is also engaging. I mean, one of the fun things about a community is I personally sometimes don't do all the research. There's so many shortages. Some of our members have talked a lot about other shortages, and I think that's the great thing about maybe not even just having a community in general. Just not even about my community, but a community in general is when you have multiple eyes, you get to see a lot of opportunities. Maybe you might not take those opportunities, but you can say, "Look, this member was or this person in my community definitely kind of got on this bullish stream because of that."
S&P almost 7,500. Which is just absolutely incredible as we're seeing the market continue to try to hit all-time highs. All right, let me hit you with a couple tickers. Vertiv, any thoughts on this one?
No thoughts on this one. So let's go. Just the power play, right? I guess that's the only thing. You have that tailwind, but outside, I don't know much.
Peng.
Oh, Peng. I mean, they do CPU orchestration. I mean, definitely seen a massive run up. It's funny. This is one that, again, we've actually in community discussed it for a while. Some of these videos don't do well on YouTube. So interesting. CPU shortage is kind of being a tailwind on this play right now. I don't know if I would be chasing. A lot of names I wouldn't be chasing.
Yeah, and Peng went from like 55 down to 48, up from 17. So obviously it's made a massive move up and down. Navitas?
Navitas, I mean, you still have the power story, right? The power, we're seeing a lot of excitement in the analog space. And then you have Navitas kind of helping that solution growth in the transition to 800 VDC in the data centers. Yesterday, we had earnings from TSEM. And they kind of even explained that the power, they have obviously extreme growth. I thought these earnings were insane for this one. But they also talked in the optic size, but they talked about the power play as well.
Any thoughts on Cisco that have their earnings?
No, I mean, I don't follow that one. It's usually too much of a big, usually I don't follow kind of the bigger names just because I rather look at some of the smaller names with a little bit more upside opportunity.
Corning, GLW.
GLW. I mean, the optic space continue to be a shortage in this space. I mean, you're getting a lot of excitement. Like I mentioned yesterday, we saw kind of TSEM kind of mentioned that one customer pretty much had a backlog on their revenue. That one customer pretty much has the trailing 12 months revenue of the company's total business in 1 year, which is crazy. It's crazy how much demand there is for optics. I don't follow the optics shortage too much, but there's a lot of indications that this is lasting a very long time.
Nokia, any thoughts on this one?
Nokia, man, a lot of, again, no thoughts here outside of just the edge computing, their partnership with Nvidia there. I do see like Marvell. Marvell was one that I was asked a bit. They haven't reported earnings yet. But I mean, ASIC wins right now. Amazon is doing extremely well with Trainium. They're expected to do well there. And then they made recent acquisitions of the optics play. They're really big in the networking space. They're also doing AECs. I like Marvell, but Marvell is one we've been talking for a very, very long time in the channel.
Credo?
Credo. Oh, I like this one. Strong earnings again. I mean, they just made an acquisition again from they are mainly a scale out company, but they're also growing now into scale up with recent acquisitions in the networking space. I've talked about it in this channel with you in previous live streams. I created like a mini networking ETF. My 3 plays were Credo, Astera Labs, and Marvell, and all those since are up 100%. Since we talked about that little ETF we created. So I like the networking space right now.
Okay, and then finally AMAT, as that is after the bell, Applied Materials.
Yeah, I mean, earnings, equipment players are expected to have a nice tailwind. I mean, if you have TSM increasing capacity, you're hearing all these niche manufacturing players also saying that they are crazy in supply constraint, so they need to increase capacity. You have the memory players that are increasing capacity on manufacturing. You have Intel that now has a more success rate on 14A, and if they're going to be successful in 14A, they need to buy more equipment. So a lot of that is somewhat priced in, but as the business, the tailwinds are definitely there for big spending.
Okay. There we go. Jose, thank you. We have appreciated deeply over the past couple of years at this point. Jose started coming on my channel in 2024, so it's literally been 2.5 years of
That's crazy.
contributing due diligence to us.
Pretty
There you go.
fun.
Appreciate it. Jose's YouTube, I am linking right there in the chat. If you are not subscribed, please make sure to subscribe. I think it was at 84K last time, 85 in like a week. So obviously the growth has been incredible, and people really value his input. And then I'm linking his Twitter there as well, that you can follow. Jose and I will be streaming Nvidia in about a week, so that'll be a movie, to say the least.
It's crazy. It's next week already. I didn't think it was. I don't know why I thought it was much later, but I'm excited.
The reason you think it's crazy it's next week is because that's vacation time for you. So you're just realizing that you have to navigate Nvidia with vacation, So
no vacations until I think October or November.
All right, Jose, thank you so much. We'll talk to you
next week, man. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Later. All right, Clarity Act has not been passed, but the hearing is going on right now. That's why you're seeing Robinhood and Coinbase and all those guys ripping, but it's not passed. It is Warren arguing with the committee member. Let me go to this real quick. I think it's gonna get passed. I think, but right now they're still debating.
Ranking Member Warren for opening comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Right now, American families all across this country are struggling. The cost of groceries is up. The cost of utilities is up. The cost of healthcare is up. We could be working right now on changes in the law that would help bring down prices and help unrig our economy. We could be working on capping credit card interest rates. Every day that we fail to deliver, families are charged an extra $368 million in interest. We could be preventing big banks from saddling customers with overdraft fees. Every year that we fail to deliver, families could be paying up to $5 billion a year that they otherwise would be able to keep. We could be stopping rampant fraud and theft on payment platforms. Our failure to deliver here means that Americans are paying hundreds of billions of dollars after getting tricked and trapped. But instead of that, we're spending our time working on a bill written by the crypto industry for the crypto industry.
Okay, so obviously she's not a fan of it. You got Senator Loomis talking about it here.
Banking industry had about the Genius Act. This has been a bipartisan dialogue that has gone on for 9 months. It has been almost tireless. And Mr. Marino, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Kennedy, honest. And especially Senator Scott, who has kept us on track for 9 months. This is the hardest piece of legislation I've ever worked on. I served 14 years in the Wyoming legislature, 8 years as state treasurer, and now 14 years in the Congress. This is by far the hardest piece of legislation I've ever worked on. And your colleague, Kirsten Gillibrand, said the same thing. And she has more experience than I do in the US Senate. And it's because this is a case of first impression. This is a very new commodity and security. And it takes time to craft something to address the innovation that has been brought about through blockchain technology. And that's why it's taken such a bipartisan effort, heavy lift, lots of negotiations, involvement from those people who are in the industry. And it has morphed since we began this bill 5 years ago because the industry has matured over those years. This is new. And to
Okay, so I think they're going to be debating it for a while until they come to the conclusion on if it happens or not. I mean, let's ask Gemini here. What is the expected vote for the Clarity Act going to be? I would imagine they have the votes needed now that they re-architected the bill over the past 2 months. Leadership is aiming for at least 2 to 5 Democrats to say yes. All the Republicans are likely to vote for it except Senator John Kennedy. They need 60 votes in the Senate floor. So if the bill passes the committee today, it's still not done. They need to get 60 votes in the Senate, which would happen in June or July. So it might, Bitcoin might react to it, but which it is kind of right now. But it's not a done deal. Nebi is 228. My goodness. We would have to see if that officially does happen. Hood completely breaking above its VWAP there. Look at that, 77.89 up 1.49%. So yeah, it's just the first step in getting this started, but it is not officially happening. At least not yet. Ondas, look at that, getting a breakout, stuck for a while, 18%. Yes, that person is not related to John F. Kennedy. They're from Louisiana. But you're seeing crypto start to have a better reaction to it. Nvidia, we're still 234. We're 234.80. Nvidia making its move. S&P basically 750. I mean, this is pretty damn incredible for the broader S&P. Nvidia, Google, are we at 400 on the Googs? We are just below 400. Apple just below 300. All of your Mag 7s helping to contribute to this S&P run. And then obviously the semiconductors are doing as well. AAOI down 8% after being up 20% yesterday. Lumentum down 3%. Tesla basically flat. Poet, it was up 39. Now it's up 28. ServiceNow at 90. ServiceNow is catching a bid. Some of the software names coming back. Palantir, a little bit of a bid. Salesforce, a very little bit. ServiceNow actually getting a bit more than the other software names. And then Marvell with that 5% move as that continues to go green. IMF is in talks with member countries to provide support for the impact of the Iran war, with many looking for policy guidance. IMF says global economy is shifting to a bad scenario due to rising oil prices, but inflation expectations are stable long term. Yeah, again, that's the thing that we're not talking about enough, which is obviously the oil issue we're having. But I think, once again, if the war ends, oil comes down, we don't have to worry too much about it. So I guess that's, for now, how the market is thinking of it. Josh Brown just put out his latest long idea. Quote, pure and simple, Allstate is a breakout in progress. I'm calling it, is the direct quote. Allstate Insurance. Year to date, it's up 5%. Huh. Allstate. ALL. It's interesting he's thinking there's a breakout there, given it is not at all in any of the relevant themes of this market. So there's got to be something he's seeing, whether technical or fundamental. AI insurance, maybe. Maybe. Are you buying SpaceX on IPO? No, I have Rocket Lab. Why do I need SpaceX? I bought more Rocket Lab at 67 in March, 1,100 shares for that reason. Like, you know, there's a lot, when I posted that screenshot, there were a lot of people on X that were just like, how are you buying this company? They barely have any revenue, yada, yada. And like, outside of fighting and explaining and defending the Rocket Lab thesis, to me, it's SpaceX. That's it. It's very simple. It's SpaceX proxy. Don't have to overcomplicate it. So no, I will not at all be buying the SpaceX IPO. I think Rocket Lab, hopefully if SpaceX goes to 3 trillion, Rocket Lab gets up to 150. Like, you know, maybe that is how this plays out. What are your thoughts on Wix? I looked at their earnings last night. The earnings were okay, but man, like, in what world does this survive the Claudes of the world? And I think there is a world where that happens, but the market's definitely not ready to be super excited about Wix. Trades at 1.5 times sales. Not saying it's expensive. You know, a lot of people thought it was cheap at 80, but I mean, again, if Microsoft can't catch a bid, Wix, which is a website app builder, which Claude can do a lot of that, OpenAI can do a lot of that. I don't know if the market's going to love it. I don't think it deserved to be down 40% though. Like, I could understand 10 or 15%. 40% was just like completely demolishing the market's thesis on this one. Intel 116.53. 116.53. Will you be buying the Cerebras IPO? No. I mean, look, if it's actually IPOing at 300, 400 a share, I'm just not going to buy it. Like, it's not worth trading it. But it's going to be pretty exciting to see how. Now, here's a good point by Chris, who just tweeted, Brad Gerstner, I didn't know this, is leading the IPO. And the last time Brad Gerstner led an IPO was Snowflake. And we all know what happened after that. So it's one of those things where it's like, I love Brad. He's awesome. But he has, you know, used retail plenty of times to make sure his bags get liquidated. And he's going to get to liquidate them at a very hefty premium here because retail just wants semis. So it's one of those things to think about. Cerebras is not Snowflake. That is fair. Then again, to Jose's point, there's one major customer and they're going to be opening at 150 times sales. Like, that's just, I don't know, dude. Maybe we're in this market where you can justify that, but you know, you don't have to chase that if you think it's a little bit too scary. What happened with the Snowflake IPO? I mean, it got dumped really badly. It worked for like a week, you know, then it didn't work. In fact, he got freaking Berkshire to buy into Snowflake at the time. They IPO'd at 250. It's still below its IPO price at 150. I think it pumped up to 421. How long did that take? Let's pull up their max. So they IPO'd at 250 on September 30th, 2020, got to 429 December 2020. And then it was just, 6 years of nothing. A little bit of a pump last November to 273, and now it's right back down. Although, given Datadog pumped on their earnings, maybe Snowflake is a candidate to pump if they can introduce some more AI adjacent software features and then have the growth to back it up. Snowflake right there, 151. Rocket Lab, it did touch 130. Now at 128. All right. That is what we got. Saying Brad liquidated retail is a wild take, but that's what happened. Like, he pumped it, he sold, and retail bought. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what happened. That's literally what happened. In 2020, when retail was going crazy, buying everything that, you know, we had like 80 different SPACs that IPO'd within a month. Chamath did the same thing. They sold their shares for their LPs. Someone bought it. I'm sure some institutions bought it, but a lot of retail, like today, is going to buy Cerebras. I'm not saying it's going to collapse like Snowflake. But the point is, like, if it does collapse like Snowflake, that will be a passing of the bags at the end of the day. And I don't even blame Gerstner for doing that. Like, this is kind of his job. He needs to get in these companies super early, right? I mean, SpaceX, you're talking about passing of the bags. You got a lot of VCs that will be passing those bags to retail. 30% allocation Elon is given to retail. And then you just got to hope the IPO works. But if it doesn't, you know, they liquidate. Micron, are we still green? Micron is almost green, 794. Passing of the bag sounds like a ritual. We all will do it eventually. You know, when we all get older and sell our portfolios, like when we're getting ready to retire, we're passing our bags to the next generation who is somehow convinced that, you know, even if the US doesn't pay back their 40 trillion in debt, that things are going to be okay. And, you know, and we're going to be all right. I was talking to Louis last night, who's one of the guys who's part of the chat. He has 100,000 shares of Nvidia at a $3 average. And so he's up quite a bit. And, you know, one of the things he told me last night, we had like a 40-minute conversation. And he was just like, there were a lot of dark days holding Nvidia, like a lot of moments where he really looked at his account and he was like, am I the dumbest person in the world for holding on to this? Like 60, 70% drawdowns that he just had to withstand. But one of the points he made is just like, if I don't buy tech, this government will never pay back their debt. They are going to inflate all of our money away inevitably. Like this currency is not even real. So he's like, the only thing I can have my money in is something that outpaces the rate of growth. And I've just been, you know, happy enough and strong enough to accumulate this asset, which turned into the most important asset in the world, Nvidia, over the past 10 years. He first started buying back in 2016. But part of his thesis outside of like AI and technology was just like, I need something that solves the debt problem because we will continue to put out debt. And as a result, you know, that's what I mean by liquidity. Like all of us one day will pass on our backs to someone else, and that someone else, maybe it'll be your grandkids, right? That's buying into the stock market for the first time. They're going to have to believe that they need to be invested in this thing because, you know, the government's not going to pay back their debt. So they have to have some way to combat the cost of living. Like asset winners have been winning the past 5 years, even through all the drawdowns. Asset winners have been winning. It's 40 trillion right now. Yeah, it'll probably be a lot more than 40 trillion in the future. Clarity Act didn't pass through. It is still being voted on. I don't think we're going to know until like 12 or 12:30 if it officially gets passed. But again, even if it does, you need the Senate to vote on it next month. So today is important, but it's not the, I think, only reason. Did you say 100,000 shares at $3? I did indeed. He has been holding on to Nvidia for a very long time. He did say to me, though, he did say, and I think this is helpful for people to probably think about, you know, 270, if that comes in a short period of time, he's getting ready to sell. He's said he's probably going to sell some covered calls at around 265, 270 going into earnings. And, you know, as bullish as he is, he also thinks that if we do get an unbelievably gigantic move, it will be time to officially take profits. And, you know, he hasn't taken profits for literally 10 years. So 265, 270 was kind of his price range. If it were to happen over the coming weeks, which who knows at this point, dude, that would be a 20% move from here. I mean, that would be crossing 7 trillion. Like that would be pretty gigantic. Or I think 6.5 trillion. That's when he would think of more profits. He can sell all of it and retire. Yeah. I mean, he could have done that for a long time though, but you know, he's continued to believe in the story. And some of the stories he was telling me, like during COVID was the toughest when Nvidia took a real big dip. Also the biggest moment, 2021, after, you know, Nvidia got a bid in 2021 when the crypto industry was using their GPUs for mining. And then once the necessity for mining kind of went down, Nvidia fell by 80%. And that's when he really had to ask himself, do I believe there is another cycle that's coming that's going to make Nvidia valuable, or was that it? And he ended up believing that it would be AI, and he got it right because, you know, now GPUs are the most important thing. Nebi is trying to go for 230 right here. And, you know, he's held on since then. His tax bill is going to be pretty bad. Yeah, most likely. At least there'll be long-term gains. At least long-term gains. All right, I think that's it for us. I'll be back on the close. I believe we'll have Chris on the show later today. We have a bunch of earnings as well. We'll cover the Cerebras IPO once it happens. We'll see if this Clarity Act officially goes through. You got Hood making a little bit higher of a move right here. We talked about China in the beginning of the show and the progress with Xi and Trump. So hopefully that continues to go well. And if it doesn't, we'll see if the market reacts. But as of now, it looks like everything we're seeing from it is pretty good as the market continues to be okay. Here is what Rubio said about Taiwan this morning around China. But overall, seems like it's not too bad of a summit they're having.
The other topics, we know where they stand, and I think they know where we stand.
Do you think China wants to invade Taiwan?
Well, I think China's preference is probably to have Taiwan willingly, voluntarily join them. In a perfect world, what they would want is some vote or a referendum in Taiwan that agrees to fold in. I think that's what they would prefer. Ultimately, it's featured prominently in President Xi's mandate in the time he's been in office. He's made clear that what they call reunification, that's what they call it, is something that has to happen at some point. We think it would be a terrible mistake to force that through force or anything of that nature. There would be repercussions for that globally, not just from the United States. And we kind of leave it there. That sort of ambiguity is what I think has defined the way we characterize this issue. And the reason being strategic ambiguities. We don't want to see conflict. We don't want to see something disruptive happen, because I think it would be very disruptive for the world and for both countries.
Going back to the point of this morning, I don't think China cares about Iran, and I think they're actually going to help the U.S. with Iran. They care more about the bigger issue, which is Taiwan. And so we're going to have to see ultimately how the street and how the markets react to that over the long term. Pouncer getting a little bit of a bid. Rocket Lab back to 130. SPY, another all-time high, $748. Absolutely incredible. Nvidia, again, all-time highs today. Nvidia and Rocket Lab really helping a lot of these portfolios right here. S&P 748. Micron struggling a little bit today, down 1%. Nothing too crazy. Intel down 2%. Then you got the S&P right here at 7,500. Oracle just hit 200, just above 200. That's nice. And Nebius, did we hit 230? We did indeed, 230.46. Data centers, compute, semis. This is the theme. This is what the market wants. And I'll be back for the close, and we'll see how this Cerebras IPO ultimately does. All right, that is it for me. Let's do word of the day. I will not be live for the Cerebras IPO. That'll be happening in a couple hours, but we will cover it on the close. And then we have a bunch of earnings after the bell. And we'll see what happens there. For anyone who wants that Trump list of buys, I'm linking again in the chat. You can click it right there. And you can check that one out as well. Okay. What do we got? We are 3 for 3 on the words of the days. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to get this wrong. I don't want to end the streak at 3. We need to go 4 for 4. Inveterate. Inveterate. I'm going inveterate. 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 That's what I got. Long established and unlikely to change. Habitual. He's an inveterate. Inveterate. He's an inveterate optimist. Always looking for opportunity. Dude, if that's a V versus a vet, I am going to be so mad. Let's see. Inveterate. That's what I'm going for.
Inveterate.
Dude. 4 for 4. What kind of? I said inveterate. It's
inveterate.
It's ut instead of 8 at the end. We're going to count that though. We're just going to that's not enough to disqualify this one. That's not enough to. This is 4 for 4. This is absolutely 4 for 4. 100%. 100%. This is, we're going with it. It's 4 for 4, and we're just going to count that as a win. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everyone being here. Have a great day. I'll be back for the market close. We'll have Chris on for the macro. We'll look at Cerebras. We got a bunch of earnings. I think we have Figma today after the bell, and we will keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. See you guys on the market close. Bye, everyone.